We are the Woodbridge Conservation Commission. This is a meeting on May 1st, 2025. We are waiting to have a quorum, but before then we thought we might fill people in on what's happening. And there is a trail cleanup day it's been switched from May 11th to May 4th, and it's going to be at the Massaro Farm, helping to finishing the connection between the trail and a road. And does anyone else have any updates of things that are happening? We can probably debrief about Earth Day, right?
Sure.
How do you guys think it went?
I feel like the trees are very popular.
Yes.
Yeah, they were all gone. I guess
Yeah.
was about 100 and some odd trees: magnolia, redbud, and dogwood.
Dogwood. Yep.
And I thought people were interested in some of the information, and it was a busy time, so there wasn't a lot of time talking to each person, but they seemed interested in getting information.
Well, the day itself, we have a counter in the lobby of the library, and between all the doors that are there, it was well over 1,200 people came through the
Yeah,
library
even
alone.
given that it was a rainy
So,
day, it was really well attended.
It was a very well done event.
True. Is there anything else we can talk about?
Well, I wasn't there. Did anybody express interest in the mock-ups of the trails, the QRs? Did anybody talk about those?
It wasn't that prominent because there were lots of other things on our table, but the few people I did talk to about it seemed interested, and we're just glad to
Good.
be reminded to go hiking.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that was fine.
Yeah, we might next time try to be more targeted in our messaging. I think there was like so much information.
Yeah.
It was kind of overwhelming. So it was like, we talk about, so it's sort of hard to know what to focus on and, point people towards.
Yes, I think that's great. Let's make a note of that.
Sharon wins for being the most accurate on time.
Okay, so now we have a quorum, and we can call the meeting to order officially. It's May 1st, 2025 at 6:21 p.m. And the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. And I would like to know your edits.
Sure, there were a couple of edits. First, there was, wasn't there a third gentleman who gave, public comment? It was Griff.
Oh,
Charlie?
Charles Griffith.
Yeah. Okay, there was that. And then, sorry, there was one other.
Well, if you think of it, we can go back to it.
No, it's it stands right out.
I think again, the paragraph about the trail signs is a little bit misleading. The Land Trust has always had an interest in them.
Does it say
It says that the Land Trust has interest in the trail
That comment
signs.
was made, so it's in my notes, so someone made that comment.
And they having a designer is not the they, it's the commission has the designer.
You mean we're the people with the designer? not
Pardon?
We are the one with the
The
designer.
commission has a
The
design.
meeting came to order at 0500. The meeting came to order at 5:14. We were not here that early in the morning.
That's the
I think that was the edit, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry.
You found it.
Don't want anybody to think that we were here
5 a.m.
before the dawn.
Okay, I think we're, public comment. Aha, we have a public commenter.
I'm Baron Jeff.
Oh
Wait,
my
I was
God.
gonna say, are you coming as ex officio?
No, I'm not an ex officio. You don't get me as an ex officio. I'm coming as a public member of the public. And chair.
I thought you guys could come, I thought
No.
Coopop can come as ex officio.
Well, if you want me to.
I was gonna say, we have it on the agenda too, so,
Okay.
as you wish.
I
However you
wish.
want, however you want to do it, officially
Right.
resident or,
I'm a mix of both.
there we-
I don't know what personality I want to be after that.
fair.
Okay, so here's some gifts.
Well, you come with more gifts than most public commenters.
There you go.
That's right, thank you, notes. These
okay.
are each of the
Are these
property
all the
files.
same thing,
No, they're
or
different.
This is two.
I am only going to talk about the first one. Okay.
And then the other ones we get to read through.
I'm not talking about all those. Don't worry about it. I was only planning on talking for 3 minutes. Okay.
All right. now
So,
just-
for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Nicole Donbello,
do you want to
resident
sign a piece of paper? Do we have a piece
and
of paper?
chair of Coopop.
Thanks, Nicole.
Do you want me to sign something?
Yeah,
We're supposed to.
need a,
Sure.
yes,
Uh,
your address. We're coming right over.
Okay, great.
All right. So hi again.
Hi.
So, obviously, as you guys know, we have been engaged in our property use evaluation for the town of Woodbridge, a project that's been taking quite some time. We have provided recommendations. The last two I just provided to you now, so you have them for your discussions, which are on your agenda for today in case you have not reviewed them. Has all the historical documentation as well as input that we had received on them. Regarding the country club, as you're aware, we also, which will be a very voluminous report eventually when everything is completed. And so we are currently engaged in chapters, if you want to call them. The first chapter was the history, which we always have in all of our reports. The second, well, we're not in any particular order, but the next chapters will be the conservation chapter will be one of them. There'll be a housing chapter. There will be a recreation chapter, and so on and so forth. And I'm not married to only those. I'm sure there'll be others as we continue on. One thing I wanted to address tonight, because we've only really focused on one chapter, which was the history aspect of it, and this confusion based on what the intent of the residents were when this property was purchased. Now, we've heard
The country club one that you're talking
country
about.
club, I'm sorry.
Right, okay, yeah, no,
Sorry.
I wanted to make
The
sure.
property.
We referenced it at the last, this is
Okay.
in reference to the last meeting we had where we said, were there 2 votes, was there 1 vote?
Right,
What was
right.
the letter from Ed, everything, okay,
Yes,
got it.
okay.
Context, thank you.
Yes, sorry. So I'm going to be discussing, and I'm just giving you those for later. I'm not discussing those tonight, unless you need me to. But this is just on the Country Club of Woodbridge. So what we did is we provided this documentation on the history with lots of appendix, which you know I love an appendix. And inside here are all the Board of Selectmen minutes. Are the notices, was the notice that was sent to the town calling for the annual town meeting. The notes read, or the actual speech read by Ed Sheehy at the annual meeting, the slideshow that was presented, as well as, and the slideshow was presented. That was all that's in there. So we did find all of those documents, and I know, Diana, you had a question of my wonderful veterinarian, Dr. Broderick, who I personally love, asking if he had any knowledge of any of these documentations, and all of them are right in here for you guys to review.
Wow, thank you.
Was
So-
it recorded like,
Yes. Oh, well, that's what's it. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, the link to the meeting is in here as well. And you can access that on our website from 2009. So that is on YouTube.
on
So
the,
I was
on the
able,
YouTube website?
it's actually on our website. So just go, it's in the report.
On
so,
Coopop's website
Yeah.
or the town, okay.
so you could just hit the
Thank you.
link and watch it yourself. It's Who's Who of Woodbridge in 2009. So, so basically, I'm going to read to you something I kind of prepared for today, quickly today. So as I indicated, we do have all these documents. Just to kind of quickly go through this, and I'll leave this for you to read. The first time that the property or the potential to purchase a property was discussed was March 25th of 2009 in public. I'm sure there was other discussions happening outside of public, but for a Board of Selectmen meeting. And I have provided those minutes for your review as well. At that time, Mr. Sheehy articulated the intention of both the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance behind the purchase, which was, quote, to control the development and to develop a plan to use the property so that it provides an income stream to help defray the cost of purchase. And Mr. Sheehy also offered possible uses to achieve that goal, such as, quote, municipal private golf course, private development, or a combination of the two or other options. So, and that is in the minutes, but that's just a summary of that first meeting. And that carried through to all the Board of Selectmen meetings, that theme. In addition, the notice that was sent out as well to the residents of the town of Woodbridge, there was a summary of the actions that they wanted to take and the reasons behind that. And again, that same language was utilized. Not to the word, but the same general idea. At the annual town meeting, which was on May 18th in 2009, again, it can be watched. We do have that link. Again, in his opening comments, he also, again, with that theme, and at the meeting, he presented a slideshow presentation. And one of the slides was entitled Possible Long-Term Options Available to the Town. And there were 4 options offered to residents should the town purchase the CCW. And those were, number 1, town leases all golf course operations to a third party and issues taxable bonds to finance the purchase. Second option, town operates golf course and hires third party to run day-to-day operations, issuing tax-exempt bonds to finance the purchase. Third option, town sells all or part of property for controlled development. And the fourth option was some combination of the above. So that was, and again, those, that's on the video. I did provide the slides, and I did actually find his typed out comments as well, so you can kind of read along when you're watching the video regarding what was presented to the residents on the date that the vote was taken. And of course, we all know that it did pass by 435 to 34, so about 66 2/3% it passed.
Did
Now-
it 435 to
34.
34?
So, just give me 1 second, I'm sorry. So, what we didn't include, and I mentioned this at the Board of Selectmen meeting when I spoke a few weeks ago. All these meetings are kind of going like this in my head. I just was at a housing meeting last night, so I've been to a lot. What we did not include in our report was the campaign letter that you've heard discussed by members of United for Woodbridge. I think Paul Harrigan was here at your last meeting. He quoted that letter. That letter was the source of that information. And when Mr. Harrigan mentioned when he made his comments that that statement that he read was actually spoken at the annual town meeting, and that's actually not accurate. And you can see that on the video with all the information I provided. If you look at the campaign letter, the information is from that campaign letter, that quote that he was utilizing. And again, just reading Ed Sheehy's comments from the annual town meeting, reviewing the slideshow, watching the video, all of which are included in our report, can easily, dispel the representation that that was the language spoken at the meeting. We did not include it because, a campaign letter, in our estimation, in general, is not a reliable source. It was not written in his capacity as first selectman, and like all campaign materials, is a paid political advertisement. It and any other campaign materials are not official town documents. And by the way, another little bit of information that we did uncover later which was quite compelling, is that the letter itself was written by a member of his campaign team and signed by him, and not actually written by Mr. Sheehy. So it's basically, that's what it is. It's political propaganda campaign material, and we unanimously decided not to include it because it would negatively affect the integrity of our reports, and as you know, we're very fact-based and always like to have all the official town documents as our source. And I don't know, do you have questions? Because I feel like there's
I have
questions.
one question.
Maybe easier if you ask me questions because there's a lot of information. So
What was the alternative plan if the townspeople didn't buy the piece of property? What was the development that was proposed? Was there one that was proposed that they were voting against to make it compelling to?
right. So let me go back to my notes here. One moment, please. So there was a foreclosure action that had been served on the Country Club of Woodbridge, and that's what kind of started this entire process. Three other defendants were named as well. A history of the action and potential implications for the town were discussed during the meeting, should that foreclosure have gone forward. That's when Mr. Sheehy discussed the procedure for the purchase of the property. The town debt was discussed, as were the financing options available to the town. So the concern was that, and I think I mentioned it here, is, oh, and here's number 60 Woodfield, by the way, so I was correct when I mentioned that. With this particular property, he mentioned that it was a concern that there was going to be a developer that was going to come in and develop the entire property, and we would have no control over that the property would be sold to a developer,
That's what I-
and we would have no say what would happen, and they could develop the entire property.
That's what
And
I-
that's not what they wanted to occur. They wanted to have what he called throughout controlled development, appropriate development. He used different words to describe his development, and it was from his words, and again, you could read the minutes here, and the reports in here, his intention to sell a small part of the property to finance the rest of the property, to hopefully run it as a golf course for as long as they possibly could. But there was definitely, to answer your question, a concern that this would be sold to one developer as a result of the foreclosure, and we would just lose all control over what would happen. And the same arguments that we hear today, right? Strain on schools if that were to happen, strains on public services, things like that were discussed. So they wanted to have control over it.
And did they ever say what they thought of as a small part was?
Not before the vote happened, however, and we're going to be doing this in phase 2 of the history of the property, as you know. Mr. Sheehy then subsequently, I want to say maybe a year or two later, brought up a proposal to the town for a developer to develop property, and I want to say, I hate guessing, but it was a small portion. For some reason, I believe it was under 20 acres. It was a small amount, but I will certainly have that information forthcoming next. But that failed. That failed, so.
Was that the one that went to referendum?
Yeah.
And it failed? And do you know what numbers it failed with?
I can get those for you. I have not done that piece yet, so I can
Okay.
certainly get those for you. And that will be part of our second part of the report regarding the history of the property and the attempts to sell the property and to certain developers and things like that. That will also be included in here.
So can we, or do you have the access to the text of the original referendum, or is that something that's easy to find?
The referendum?
Yeah, there was a referendum to buy the
That was
property.
a town
Was-
meeting?
It was a town meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it's all
so
in
how does
here.
that work?
So yes, it's all inside this report.
So it's just the people at the town meeting that
Mm-hmm.
voted for it?
Yes. Yep. So, and everything regarding that, whatever preceded the town meeting is included in this report and ends at the town meeting and the closing on the property. And then we will continue on with adding in what the attempts were for development, And I know there's also, it was an offer made by the Parks Association, right, in conjunction with Woodbridge Land Trust. All these options that came afterwards to where we are today will be within this report as well.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So, the letter that you were saying that people are referencing that, that the first selectman had sent out, was really more like propaganda?
Yeah, it was a campaign letter. So if you look at the letter, which if you have eyesight like mine, initially I'll admit I first saw the letter and didn't see the paid for by, underneath the disclosure.
First
Right,
selectman, yeah.
exactly. So it was a campaign letter. And so, it's very important to us, and you know how my commission is in terms of ensuring that we're utilizing town documents. And it was the unanimous opinion that this is a campaign letter, right? It's paid for to try
Yeah,
to
by the.
sway somebody to vote
The
for
only
somebody.
thing about that is that versus lots of other information, it went out to every single person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's different than, lots of things don't get that much exposure, so it was a dominant point of exposure of communication about
Mhm.
intent, whether it was a campaign or letter or not, because he was already first selectman at that time, right?
He was first selectman.
So
he was
people-
running for re-election.
Right,
Yes.
so people
And
When he sent it out, what, April 30th, and when was the election?
May,
May.
right
Second?
before the
Fifth?
annual meeting.
Right, is it the first Tuesday in May? I can't remember.
I think
Yeah,
it was.
it was.
If you look at the campaign, I mean, again, I'm still in the position that's a campaign letter and it's not an official town document. But if you look at the campaign letter in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen minutes, what was presented to the residents at the annual town meeting, the notice that went out to the entire town, much like the campaign letter, right, announcing this annual town meeting and listening to the language and the reasoning and intent behind
And
wanting
that's
to
in there,
purchase.
the.
Oh yeah, that's in here as
Okay.
well. Of course
So
I
that
will
went out
share.
to everybody.
Yes. And that went out to everyone. I think it puts it more in a different perspective.
It definitely puts it in
Yeah.
perspective, it just, I don't
Mhm.
think it negates that all 8,000 people got exposed to that data point.
Right.
Was it printed in the newspaper as well, like in the bulletin?
His letter?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea if it was in the letter, in the bulletin. I would, if it
I
was.
can't tell if that's what the letter is referencing, the endorsement of the bulletin, which is enclosed. Several issues have been raised about the purchase of the Woodbridge Country Club, like to set the record straight. I'm trying to read it, it's very small writing. Purchase is approved by the town, require 150 acres of beautiful open space to be enjoyed by residents for generations. It would be irresponsible for the board to allow the property to fall into the hands of developers. Accordingly, you have the opportunity to vote on whether or not to purchase the property at the annual town meeting at May 18th. And then he goes on to say he's a strong leader and hope to have your support on May 4th. There we go, May the 4th be with you. That's when he was running. Okay.
Right, and I mean, there was a concern, as I indicated, and you'll see this in the Board of Selectmen minutes in the history of the reason why we wanted to purchase the property, to not allow this property to go into the hands of a developer that we had no control over, that we were not, just saying to somebody, here's the property, they were going into foreclosure, and the town didn't want to see that, and the country club didn't want to see that either, right? So
Yeah.
they were really motivated to have the town of Woodbridge purchase that property. But according to the minutes of the Board of Selectmen, since the first time it was discussed in public at that meeting, the development aspect of it was discussed then, and it carries through all the way through to the annual town meeting where the residents voted on purchasing the property. So,
To keep it from development.
not to keep from development, development was always on the table. but-
Uncontrolled development
Uncontrolled
that would produce a
development.
major strain on town services like school, police, and fire.
Right. So he never said no development. And he actually, as I indicated in March when he said, to control the development, to develop a plan to use the property so it provides an income stream to help defray the cost of purchase. And again, as I indicated, he provided possible uses in these minutes such as the golf course, right? Private development or a combination of the two or other options.
A lot of golf course options in here.
Golf course option,
Town
municipal
lease
or
is all
private.
golf course.
Private development or a combination too. And then he subsequently carried that through, and then he was the first selectman after that to bring forward the potential of development, but of only a certain piece of that property in the hope of financing and paying for the rest of the property.
This is maybe a little off the topic, but it was financed, and for a long time, I understand they only paid the interest and they didn't pay down the principal. Is that true?
That I don't know. That sounds like a Tony
Oh, I-
Genovese question.
But it might be in your history of your report, because it's become more of a burden for longer because of that decision.
I mean, I could certainly look for it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how relevant it is, but it's
Well,
relevant.
this predates it, so it probably wouldn't be in here. This would
No,
probably be
you're
afterwards
right.
when I
That's
go
your
into
second-
that
right.
other piece of the history.
I just want to pause for a second. Tim, do you, Tim, oh, over here. Tim, sorry. Do you,
Sorry, Diane.
oh, no, that's all right.
It echoed off.
Sorry, do you have a public comment or are you waiting for your spot on the agenda? Okay, perfect. I just, before I like said, okay, should we move on to the next public comment, I want to make sure we don't actually have another public comment so that I don't have to say that, because we're having a good conversation here. So I don't, we're just going to call this item number, whatever we have
So
here,
can I ask
17.
a question?
You can ask the question.
So I kind of get what you're saying, but I'm trying to figure out what your intent is. So are you trying to specifically refute the claim that the former selectmen told everyone that that's what they were voting on, or are you trying to say that, you know, that are you trying to say the reason that people voted? Because those are two very different things, because the
I'm-
selectmen could have said one thing, they could have had a meeting, but then the people who also received all this campaign stuff could have voted with in their minds that they wanted to conserve it in some way, or maybe they wanted to develop it, or maybe, you know, so.
We won't know because they voted and it's private,
Yeah.
right? So we don't know what their intention was.
Exactly,
My
yeah,
intent
so-
as a chair of CUPOP is to provide facts and documentation to support the facts behind any property that we discuss, and in regard to this, to provide the facts behind the purchase and the intent of the property and what was presented to the people, not only prior to the town meeting, you know, before and right up to it, but what was actually provided to the residents as options at the town meeting before they voted.
But it sounds like I've heard two different arguments for and I think sort of a little bit why it was originally purchased. This focus on it is a little bit overblown, because it really matters what the people want now.
I agree.
However, you know, it's useful.
Yeah.
But there's sort of two different arguments. That I've heard. One of them is that the former first selectman told everyone we are purchasing the property to protect it, and that's why people voted for it. And then the second one was people voted because they wanted to protect it. So I feel like the first one, you could have some evidence and show that maybe that wasn't true, because, you know, he said, okay, there's going to be some development or this or that. But you can't really get into the minds of the voters and say why they actually voted for it.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm getting in the minds of why people voted for it. I'm providing the town and any commission or board of selectmen the facts behind what was presented to people prior to voting.
Right.
So if we're going to focus on the town meeting itself and what was presented to the people that day, to your point, there could be half the people there could not have even voted for him, right? And they were there because it was a town meeting discussing a potential purchase of property, right? We don't know. And it wouldn't be make any sense or provide us any kind of concrete data to try to sit here and guess what's in people's minds. If I could do that, I'd be a millionaire. You
But
know
the
what I
other
mean?
thing is
But-
that you're bringing up, which I think is that when they did get a chance to choose development or not on a referendum, they chose not to. So we don't know what their intent was in the first time when they heard both that in a campaign letter, which is not as authentic as it might be, that he wanted it, his intention was to protect it, and then at the actual meeting in the Board of Selectmen there was a variety, but then years later when he went to encourage some development, it was voted against. So somewhere in there people didn't want development for whatever reason as much as I mean,
Well-
there's a portion of people that certainly felt that way at some point.
I think also you have to bring into the point that when people, just like the difference between conservation, preservation, open space, blah, blah, people have all different interpretations. And I think when the words controlled development, I'm sure that many people, I having been one, having been there and voted, that they were gonna control it from development, as it were. And I think a lot of people probably thought that. So you really don't,
And you were there for that.
I was there, I voted, yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely.
So I would.
Sorry.
But
No.
so nobody knows.
No, I mean,
Well,
nobody-
I mean, I would suggest you watch the meeting because it's the meeting, right? So you can see what was represented to the voters at that time, or the residents at that time who voted for this. I can tell you that the facts are that, you know, his comments that the goal of the town in purchasing the Woodbridge Country Club is to control its development, and again, to your point, control, you know, all that, the different definitions, and to develop a business plan to finance the purchase of the properties that provides an income stream to help defray the cost of purchase. And then he then went on with his slideshow presentation and provided 4 options, which I already discussed, as possibilities to make money or finance this purchase. So, no, we're never going to know what was in people's minds, right? I mean, there could have been
How they interpreted what he
there
said.
could have been 500 people there that said, I want both. I want a golf course and a house on a golf course, right? There could have been 500 that said, I only want golf. You know what I mean? We're never going to guess
You
that.
have no idea.
But my
We
point
understand.
is, I want to ensure, as my commission, and as I'm sure you guys know now, we like to we research all this information, that we just ensure that these official documents are available for everyone to have the facts pertaining to what was presented to the residents. So,
I have a
You do an
couple
amazing
questions.
job.
thank you.
Couple questions. First, can we have your help on researching some of the conservation historical?
Oh, my free time, sure.
Yeah, right. Sorry, no, I'm curious, so, like, between the 2 votes that they had, so they had the vote to purchase it for development or conservation, whatever that case had may be, and then if the town votes putting a property up for sale or not to sell, and then the town's people vote not to sell it, like for, development or whatever, which one is like the precedent? Like which one holds?
What do you mean? Like
If they voted, if we were gonna sell it to, the option was to sell it to a developer, and the town strongly voted against that, right? So then, why would we revisit a vote again?
well, it's not really a precedent like a court case or something like that. It's still town-owned property, right? So if needs change, to your point when you said, we're focusing on 2009, it's now 2025. So don't remind me. So we look at what different needs could be as the years progress, right? And it's a town-owned property, and if there are needs to change the use, I don't think anything precludes from the town from investigating and, looking into the potential, if it's development that they need, if it's recreation that they need, whatever it may be. I don't think that.
And when you
anything
say
would
the
preclude.
town, are you referring to like the town, like administration, or are you referring to?
Well,
who are we referring
in
to?
theory, you would look at balance the needs, right, of the residents in town and what the town needs, right? So, I'm not an expert on what the town needs, but if we were
Like
talking
right now,
about,
your exercise on evaluating the different properties in town, right?
for example, I'll give you a good example.
Okay.
I have one. Okay, so we're looking at different properties, right? And we know from listening to all the Board of Selectmen meetings and all the conversations that are going on statewide, we know that there is a conservation piece where the state of Connecticut has identified 21% of its land to be conserved, right? We know that. We know that there's a housing shortage, and that, I'm not using the word mandate, that there's a housing shortage.
because it's not a mandate.
And that we have just over 1% of affordable housing, which is a problem. I'm just gonna say
Which
that.
we
That's
should
my
also,
opinion.
we should thank
Right.
all of our
Right.
developers for
Right.
lowering that bar so much.
Right, so that's a need, right?
Appreciate it.
There's a recreational need, we know that, which is something that my commission, for example, is looking at in terms of Peace Park to try to add some amenities for that. We know there's an agricultural need in town, right? Because we don't have a lot of agricultural properties. And for example, we were looking at, it's a Racebrook Road property, the number escapes me right now, but you know, Jason came in and we
Yeah.
discussed that property as a potential agricultural property. So I guess what I mean is, you know, when you're looking at all the different needs and trying to balance things that we need in this town, and there's a lot, because we also need new things at the school, right? We also have an issue with the police department. We have, you know, all these other things that just pop up, that seem to be popping up all at once.
But so what stops, like, if, you know, let's say, okay, this year Mika's in office, we have a vote, we're gonna build a new firehouse on a property. Then, I don't know, after the election, somebody else is in office and they vote to stop that whole project, and then the town votes, yep, stop that project, conserve that land. So,
I think that's
like-
contractual at that point, right? I mean, I would hope that we probably, I mean, I don't wanna guess, you know,
Well,
I don't
I'm
wanna put words,
curious.
but, I mean, if we ever were that far along on a project, I would assume, and I'm not an expert.
let's say we haven't even put a shovel in the ground.
I would assume that there's a contractual obligation and there's probably bonds that we had to get, because let's be honest, we don't have, not that I know, 50 million sitting in a pocket somewhere in Woodbridge, right? So this would be bonded projects and things of that nature that we would have already, you know, engaged with the state of Connecticut. So that's what we do. Like, for example,
I think we need to
Mika's-
come back to.
Yeah, no, sorry, for my last, well, so, while I'm curious about that because there have been, you know, properties that were specifically, like, what was the one that they just built the second firehouse on? There's certain
Fitzgerald
properties that have been, you know, designated
Oh, you mean
for
the shed?
conservation,
You mean
right?
the shed?
The
shed?
shed?
The
That's
building?
what they call it.
That's what they call it. It's called the shed.
Yes,
Oh,
it's called
I'd
the
like to
shed.
live in a shed like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's called the shed.
Okay.
But,
All
You mean the
right.
building behind the
But
fire
Diane-
department?
Yes,
look,
yes.
Diana, that's a good point.
My question was, so, like, we have these obligations, these contractual obligations, or we have these obligations when we get land, or we purchase land, or somebody donates land, or they give us land, or however it goes, and they say, this is my expectation for the land, and I deed restrict it as, you know, conservation, or even we don't go that far. The town gets the land and it's supposed to be preserved, and then the town just decides, okay, no, I'm not gonna preserve it, or I'm gonna do something else with it. You know, and then maybe they turn around and they go into court and they say, oh, let's just change our mind about this, you know, conservation deed restriction that's on here and
Oh, no,
turn around
that's-
and make a
you
pavement.
can't.
No, you can't. That's a
can't
total
do that.
different, that's a
Diane. They did
total
do that.
different ballgame.
But that's my question, is
Yeah,
that
no,
they
no, no.
did do that. They have done that.
In a protected, deed restricted
You can't.
space, they haven't,
It's
not in this
impossible.
town, they
I don't
haven't.
know what the,
You, in order to change, and I don't wanna give
Wait,
legal
wait,
advice here,
wait,
but, okay, go ahead.
there was an instance that I was aware of and involved in where, and I don't know how restricted it was and but the town had agreed to make the space between the firehouse and the Fitzgerald property, that's the walking trail, a conservation easement. And then the firemen decided to, unbeknownst to anyone else, put a fire pit there. And there was a whole battle, and they unrestricted that area. And I don't know, with the Board of Selectmen vote.
Because they had never
They never
gone through
restricted
the
it.
legal steps
Right.
of conserving, making
So
it
if you have a
conserved.
legal,
If
so
they're
that's,
legally
Okay, that,
bound, then
But then that
they
also
can.
brings up like the Enoch property, right? Which does have some conservation easements on it.
And they have to be maintained by whoever owns it.
25 Enoch does.
Is that the one, 25?
Not
Enoch?
31.
Right, 25.
31 has,
25 Enoch is the one where you
in
can't
the
cut
middle
any
of
trees
the, it's
and,
kind of landlocked in between
and the
properties.
trails go
No,
through that.
yeah,
So I'm
no,
just,
you're talking about,
yeah.
you're talking about 31.
so
That has the
Diana,
restriction on the trees. But that restriction holds, it doesn't,
well,
it
maybe
doesn't,
this is something that Nicole could investigate in terms of when something occurs that seems to the general public to be a restriction, but it doesn't have any legal basis. I think people get very confused about that.
well, yes, they do get confused, but that's the answer. It has to have legal, a legal.
Yeah, it has to have a deed
It
restriction,
has to have a deed
on it, or an
restriction or an
easement.
easement.
Yeah, or an
And
easement.
that's
Which are
it,
legal
that's the end
documents
result.
to protect the
So
land.
otherwise, the Board of Selectmen can
And
change their
anybody can
opinion.
own it, but
Because
they are
that's-
bound by those restrictions.
Right, because that's the issue, right? I mean, again, going to definitions, right? Open space, protected open
Mm-hmm.
space,
Okay.
easements, conservation easements, all these,
Well, in this TAC
All
commission
this
seems, the
vocabulary.
consultant seems to play fast and loose with whatever terms, like green space, they're deciding is whatever term they want to use this time. So I think it's, for us, I mean, Coopop represents all of us, all of the properties in town, those that are developed, those that are undevelopable, and those that we want to preserve. And so I'm, like, just like everybody else uses Scoop Up to evaluate a property and understand, what role they can play in that. I think we want to be able to access that resource also, so that we're best prepared when we're informing residents.
Well, that's why you have these.
So I think we're getting a little off topic, but
Yeah,
I do
right.
want
So I want
to
3
ask
minutes
I
times
actually
10.
wanted to ask a follow up to that.
Thanks, Nicole.
So is there so you brought up this case of behind the firehouse that it seemed to have
Besides the firehouse.
or it seemed to have some intent of being conserved, but then the legal stuff was never done, and so
Exactly.
it was not ultimately conserved. Are there
Exactly.
other properties that have that similar status in
Many.
town and can we get a list of those? Because those would be, I feel like that's something that we should know about.
Like a top
And-
secret, maybe.
No,
no, not top
it's-
secret,
It's
no.
like the Fitzgerald property
Yeah.
isn't truly protected.
More
No,
like,
it's not at all.
It's not. That, I know that, it's not.
Yeah,
And
so,
so-
sort of
so you
like
have- yeah.
where maybe the townspeople or many people think that the property is actually conserved open space, but it's actually not.
Well, if you look at my list for Coupop on the website, it will tell you if there's a restriction. And it will tell you if it's protected. It'll have a Y for yes, and it will tell you if it's Woodbridge Land Trust, it'll say WLT. If it just has a Y, you go into the deed to see, what the restriction is. And that restriction could be many things. It could be agricultural use only. It could be recreational use only. It could be open space use only. It could be conservation. It could be some kind of a conservation easement that's on the property, right? Not necessarily the whole property, but an easement on it, for a trail or something of that nature. So that is in our list. So anybody can go and look at that. That is updated and that is accurate. So if there's a property like Fitzgerald that some people think is protected and has some kind of a protective restriction on it, it doesn't. So, and we've reviewed all of these deeds. And so that's an easy source just to quickly go down
Okay,
and see who's
that's really
protected.
helpful.
So,
And so then I guess my question is, like, if we have properties like that, how do we bring it to a town vote to let, like you said, the town of Woodbridge, the residents, vote and decide they want this to be protected or they don't?
it's probably a Nick question.
Okay?
Yeah, because I feel like that could be part of our role here, is
Yeah.
we could highlight, like, hey,
Right. And also,
guys
I
love
think the
this
state,
open
the
space,
state's
but it's
goal for
actually
open
not.
space, isn't that protected open space?
Is it protected?
Yes.
Is it protected 21%? Or just
Mhm.
open
I
space?
believe I believe
I have to
it
actually
is.
look at that. That's what my next
I'm not
chapter I have to
positive,
look
but
at.
I
Next
believe it
chapter, I
is.
heard is
chapter.
conservation, we're in on it.
Yes.
Help
But,
us. Call us in, we'll do some
Right.
homework.
so, so I have that, so yeah, to answer your question, basically, because you're not familiar with my voluminous reports yet, I guess, Ben, but you will be.
I would also
I have
encourage you to double side print these.
Well, I wasn't gonna print them at all, but then I wanted to have them here for you guys.
I
We
appreciate that.
that, that's where you.
Because then you can review them
I
and
don't
read
know where you
them when
printed
you're
them, but you
done
should
with your
tell
meeting.
them, change their printer settings to double sided only.
Yes, I did, yes. So I have this report, I have the one on Laurel,
Okay.
and I have the one on Brookwood.
Do you have anything on those two that you want to say, Cliff's notes for us that while we're reviewing
Cliff note
them?
it?
Like the.
Well, okay, so Brookwood, for example, I don't have it in front of me. Brookwood,
We have it right here.
we didn't have official input from conservation on, but I recall someone on this commission in passing mentioning to me that there were concerns about potential wetlands, even though the wetland overlay did not identify wetlands. I don't know which one of you it was, I apologize. So it was probably you. So I did talk to Chris Sullivan, and there is information in there. That property has been looked at because it is a single-family deed restricted, I should start with that, a deed restricted single-family home. And that property has been looked at before, not recently. So we'd have to do a whole other evaluation as to whether or not it can ever even be developed. And so the recommendation from us was to recommend it to be utilized for single-family use in accordance with the deed. But obviously,
Brookwood.
with the condition being that, to ensure that it doesn't have any issues with soils.
So
and
before
things
any
of that
development, there'd be a
So-
wetlands.
And they'd have to do that
evaluation.
anyway
This is the one
because-
that's labeled 52 Brookwood, but then references 31 Enoch Drive?
Is it on there?
Yeah,
Oh my God, it's a typo. I'll fix it.
okay.
Oh, it's located.
I can't get rid of
I
that
was so-
property out of my brain.
Okay, good call, Sir Diana. Okay, so
Thank you for
this
the
is-
typo. Thank you for the typo.
Yeah.
Seriously, I gotta fix that. But anyway, so
Okay,
all the other properties.
so that is, and I think that's concurrent with what we suggested, but didn't officially tell you, is that if there isn't wetlands that's prohibitive, it seems like it's a one-off and it's not a huge contribution to the ecosystem around it.
So, all right, and then the other one is the
The one
Laurel,
that we've not, but we,
but this is the small one that Tim, is this
Down at
one?
the end of, yeah.
Yeah,
the
the
end of
small one
Laurel
that's
Road.
the access to
that
the
goes,
water
Jason
company.
Morrell
Yep.
and Tim thinks is worth conserving.
Because
Maybe you
of
do
the-
wanna have public comment.
Because of the ease.
Maybe you do want a public comment about that.
So I'll
Access
finish and you can
trail?
take over 'cause
Nicole's never coming back to our meeting again.
Tim.
So much for our 3-minute.
So I'm sure
public
Tim and
comments.
I will disagree on
I
this,
still have the time
obviously.
going. I will give equal amounts of time to both people.
So I'm pretty sure Tim and I will disagree on this because I did include his comments in in the report that he had provided to Joy Prudhomme. There are, when you look at, and I included the map in there as well, there are 3 access points to the property. There is one on Laurel, there is one on Baldwin, and there is one on Ansonia. I did make note of, and I'm gonna see if I get the section right, section 7 of the Greenway expansion plan, which I think is actually, am I right, section 7?
Top of my head is,
Oh, see, I think I got it.
I think you
I
are.
bet you
Okay,
did.
section 7 of the Greenway expansion plan, you know, the plan being that should, which we took into consideration, should the Regional Water Authority ever sell this property, we could utilize that to expand, put, you know, some trails on it, expand it with the other connecting municipalities, things of that nature. So obviously, we looked at the fact that there are 3 access points. Now, the 2, Ansonia and Baldwin. Ansonia is a busier street, that's what Jason had said, and he had a preference of Laurel because it was quieter and it's a cul-de-sac. It's my understanding from information that's in that report, and I'm going to tell you I'm not a hiker, so I did not hike in there.
We
And
cordially
especially
invite
with the
you
tick
to join
disease that
us.
just happened in my house, I'm not doing it. But that Regional Water Authority accesses the property through Baldwin Road, and that there's some kind of a, I don't think it's a technical path, but, you know, getting into the property. And although, you know, then you have Ansonia Road, which, yes, it's busy, but in our minds, we were discussing possibilities such as, should we ever get this property, and talking about parking lots and things like that. Much like, you know, the property on Ansonia Road that has the trails, is it Ansonia? No, is it Ansonia? No, 313. On 313, when you're going into Seymour on your left-hand side, there's like that dirt,
Naugatuck.
yeah, it's like that dirt, whatever, you know, over there to keep the path right near the waterfall there. Something like that maybe could be possible on Ansonia Road. So given that there were the 3 access points, that's what we based our decision on. We wanted to make, now, had it been the only access point, clearly we would never have voted on that because we want to ensure that the Greenway plan is, which we think is a great thing to have in this town. I don't know who doesn't, right? I hope nobody doesn't think that. You know, and the possibility of expanding to municipalities, which would be a wonderful asset to have. We want to ensure that that was protected. So that's why we voted the way we did.
And
That's-
you haven't presented it to the Board of Selectmen yet, or you have?
They have it. They were given it. I don't know when they're discussing it. There's still properties that they've had since last March, but it's been turned in and off my to-do list, right, to create. So, but I did provide you, again, just like with all the other, you know, properties, the history of the property. You know, it's the end of a cul-de-sac, you know, it's for highway purposes only property, you know, just like we see on all these. And I put in there the public comments regarding Jason, the information provided by Joy from Tim. It's like we're playing the game of
So,
telephone
Just
from
to
Joy for Tim.
consolidate what you've said, is that because there's many access points, the argument that both the past Conservation Commission presidents have decided, you decided that those weren't as important as the fact that they could figure out another way to get to the Greenway, and it wasn't critical that they preserve that piece of land to get
I
there.
don't want to say it wasn't important what they had to say, because I did include it in here. But because there were 2 other access points and there were 2 neighbors that were interested in retaining this property, yes, that's what came into, or that was basically what our discussion was
Do you know
about.
how far away those other 2 access points are?
How far away from?
It's on the map. You can look at the map I have in the report.
I'm just curious, like, what the distance is.
Baldwin's right around, so, you're gonna make me assign
Well, Baldwin's
feet?
quite busy, right? Okay, yeah, quite busy and, narrow?
I mean, that was Jason's position, right? That, yes, there's other access points to this property, right? And he said he would, his preference would be a quieter street, but he also kind of, not that he was laughing, but he kind of like chuckled and said, but I don't know how much the neighbors would love that anyway, you know what I mean, being on a cul-de-sac. But his comments are in here, and there is a map of the property.
And
in
the,
here as well.
yeah, but there's the property card is going right over where the access point is right here on Laurel Road.
Here, here's
no.
another piece.
Is there,
No.
Data point.
oh, sorry, one of them is, okay.
Yeah,
How many feet across is it? How, it's 1/3 of an acre, that whole thing?
It's very small. Yeah,
And-
0.32.
So it's at the end of Laurel Road. So
Right.
just like at
It's
the
like
end
a
of-
leftover of a.
So just like at the end of Ranch Road,
Yeah.
there's like that little cutaway, right?
Right, it's like a
that-
leftover, it's like the
And
tail.
that's that leads us to the trails to Centerfield and there.
right.
That gets used all the
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
It's good for, well, I see a lot of runners, cross country, everybody
So, and
using
there's,
it.
once it's private land, there's no interest in an easement where people could put a trail there.
Is there any discussion of like,
That's a possibility, I suppose, right?
does it have to go to vote if they decide to, would we be selling it to those?
It'd be, they don't call it abandonment anymore, they call it discontinued use. So that is my understanding of the process. So again, that's a Nick question, but that is my understanding.
So if it's discontinued use, it goes to a vote for the town's people?
It was on once and was removed because there was a
The RWA rescinded.
misunderstanding that that was the only entryway into the property when there were 2 other entranceways, so that's why it was removed. I don't know why no one looked at a map, but I don't know.
Well,
So-
because you'd have to be on Ansonia Road, which is considerably busy, or Baldwin Road, which is considerably busy and dangerous.
Baldwood Road is the entrance that, my understanding from the information provided, is the entrance that's being used by the Regional Water Authority now.
With their trucks. Yeah.
So kind of like, they cleared a space.
But they're not like parking on the
trucks.
road and walking there.
No,
Right.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if we ever, honestly, and I'm not an expert, but, again, if we ever, just talking, if we ever did have the opportunity to have this property at some point in time, which may never happen, but if it does happen, it'd be interesting to see if we could investigate having a parking lot on Ansonia, much like the one on Rimmon. Because it's a
it's a wider.
Because it's
Yes,
a wide enough
it's a
entry.
wide-
wide area to enter, yeah.
As
And
we're
you
talking about this
really
right
get
now, for that
skinny
other
down.
entranceway right on Racebrook, the deep requires significant, turn off, like runway, I'm gonna use runway for lack of,
Radius.
thank you, Tim.
Radius.
Turning radius, it's gotta be very long.
But I don't
is
think,
typically what
listen,
happened.
I mean, these are just what ifs, right? I mean, what if the property's ever offered to us? It may never happen in our lifetime, who knows? Our concern was first to make sure that the land would not be landlocked so that we can ensure that the greenway was able to be
I
expanded.
have a question. When let's say that it goes through in the $43,000 or whatever they sell it for, is that go into general funds, or does that go into more land conservation for other
You're
places? or-
asking me a lot of questions about finances today,
I know.
Sharon. I don't look like Tony Genovese.
You came here for a couple comments, right?
Okay, well, that would be worth knowing.
I guess they're related, and this is more, just, I think Coupop probably has more insight into, why the town wants to sell these properties, but it seems like,
They want to sell it because my guess is because our, now they're in budget season and we've all seen the budget. We pay, 93% of our budget comes from property taxes.
but do you think so they think it's gonna generate, this little parcel of land is gonna generate enough property taxes to make a difference?
No, it's not
So-
one piece of land, it's not that, and it's just, it's these neighbors who took an interest in it, and they asked, were us to all weigh in on what we think of whether or not this should remain with the town or not, and does it serve a purpose for the town? That's pretty much
Yeah,
where we
because
are right now.
that's the alternative
If I could put a
reason
pickleball
that
court
they would
there, I
want to
would.
sell it is that's maybe that we want to give the land to the neighbors, which I think that's a reasonable thing as well. But I'm just trying to figure out, and maybe it's both of those things. Maybe they think they can get revenue, they want to be kind to the neighbors.
Yeah,
or-
we didn't, and by we, I don't mean Coupop, I mean we collectively, the town, did not, contact these individuals. They contacted the town. And this actually was, they were contacted a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was 2016 was when they were first contacted about this. And the neighbors asked if the town would be willing to abandon the property and to, so that they could split the property between the two of them.
So would it be sort of the best of all worlds if the town sold it but had an easement for a trail on it? I mean, would that sort of make
Always a
everybody happy?
possibility. That could be in a recommendation.
Ooh, I like that.
From
And how
conservation.
does that work, though? So ultimately, this is up to the Board of Selectmen to decide, so we
But
would
then the town has to vote
recommend
on it,
that,
right?
and then,
So we could write a
So
letter.
this would have to go,
and obviously the people buying it would have to be okay with that sort of easement.
yeah, and now I don't, just to be clear, it's for discontinued use. So that doesn't necessarily mean that would be bought. It could be gifted, it could be bought. There's all different options. I don't know which one is going to be chosen in terms of this particular property. It does become part and parcel of their land, so it will become part of their acreage should they,
This is if the regional water authority decides to
No,
abandon
this is
it.
just this
This is
land even
just this-
before the regional
Yeah.
authority does it.
and the Regional Water Authority had been contacted about whether or not they objected, because they have to be, they're an abutting landowner, as to whether or not they objected to this property being
And what was the plan for the neighbors? Were they going to,
split it.
they're gonna split it?
Mhm.
So it could be that one neighbor wants a trail and the other one doesn't, and we put it on the one that is okay with it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
The world's so many
Or
options.
you
So
put
is
it right
that
down the middle,
something-
Ben.
Is that something?
Right down the middle.
Sell all but just the little
But maybe do we have the authority or right to get in touch with these town owners and present this idea to them, or to ask the board of
It would probably go
Selectmen
through
to?
the town. So if that was a recommendation from conservation, let's say, right, saying, we would agree, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if you were to say, we agree.
Keep putting them in the.
If we
Hypothetically,
agree
sounds
to the
good.
discontinued use this property with the caveat that we would want an easement to access the property. And then, how the board of selectmen will take it under advisement, they'll discuss it, and if that's
So
something that they
if we were
decide.
to write, would you think it would be better to go directly to them or write a letter to you that you would include in the report? Or
I
both?
did say in
She's
these,
already
because
submitted this
but
report.
I did say in this, that I did not get information from conservation, but should I get information, I will make it part of this report.
How about that? That sounds perfect.
So, and moving forward, what would be the best process
You
to
want
know?
to make a public comment?
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Oh, good.
Also, what would be in your last 55 seconds, Nicole, of your 50-minute public comment?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I know you're regretting this. So what is the best way to work with you and to get this information so that we can prioritize the properties that you guys are prioritizing and understand how long it takes you to work on a property so that we know we get the information in there before you send your reports off. Or we can meet with your
Right.
commission also
Or you can
to
come
make
talk to
sure
us
we
along.
can dialogue on it. Well,
So it's gonna take, it takes at least 3 months, I would say.
Okay.
And.
90 days, put it in writing.
First, don't put that right. First,
Minimum of.
okay, take it back. And first we identify properties, right? And then we'll do a workup on the property and obtain all the deeds and historical information. Some are pretty easy, right? Like Cow Path that has a deed restriction on it. So we really only would get information pertaining to the background and not need anything from anyone else. Anything that we want to potentially look at for change in use. You guys are in a unique position because you're on as an ex officio
Ex officio,
member.
yes, we can
So whomever sits at the meeting, and poor Barbara was at the meeting on Monday night when I think we riddled off like 25 properties. Which
5 Allen, 157 Ansonia, 3 Bond. Shall I keep going?
which are not all going to be discussed because we have a budget.
90 days for each of those?
Right.
7 Clark Road, which they put on me to research.
Join the meeting.
She's researching
They
it.
did.
It's .01. I want to know what it is. It's a square, but anyway, it's a square.
It's a conservation carve out
Yeah, so,
from a
of .01.
subdivision.
No, it wasn't at all.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's
we don't
not
know what it is.
Carve out.
But,
That would be a great one for you to deal with.
I would just say, as soon as we identify it, a property, whomever's at the meeting at that time, either you just write them down and give them to you guys so you know they're in the back of your head. And then, I try to stay within that list, but like, for example, we have a lot of properties we have to kind of start wrapping up here.
So, Nicole, this has been a busy Conservation Commission time, as it has been for you, so we have obviously not focused on it as much as
Or it
we
has been
might.
because of you. No, I'm just kidding.
Good question. No, but and we're now down to fewer members, so coming to each of these meetings is getting a little trickier. Is there any way that we can get, and you do a lot of research that could be helpful to us, is there any way we can get a preliminary report and then assess it? Because we don't have time to do that research on our own, and you've done it, and then we can utilize that to then also corroborate with other information sources and then give you a response.
You want me to write 2 reports now, Sharon?
No, I want you to, no, you,
Make
I
sure
know
there's
you
a
have
cover
a
page on the
voluminous.
TPS report.
I mean, I have.
Do you
the
know what I mean?
deeds.
No, it's as you
Yeah,
get,
yeah.
as you get educated, we'd like to be up to speed with your education so that we can then utilize that, so that we don't have to do our own education, which we, I mean.
And then make you come back and do a mini workshop with us.
Yeah. So I would, we have the deeds, right? We'll have the deeds pretty quickly. We will pull the maps pretty quickly, so that we have an idea, whether there's wetlands, that's usually dispositive, right, of any
Right.
type of property we're looking at. So though, in certain properties, I won't even, ask for input
Because they're not
because
relevant.
they're just no,
Right.
wetlands, whatever,
So
restrictions.
it sounds like 2/3 of the way through, we should chime in and
Right.
fairly quickly kind of assess it and maybe do a site visit possibly, and then
Right.
communicate
Well,
with
I
you.
think
Right.
2/3 of the way through is,
Or halfway.
if we were doing on our estimate timeline here, would be 1 month. So we
Right.
hear about it that month, we have to
No,
get
no,
out
no,
there,
no,
we
no.
have to do this and then
Yeah, yeah.
respond. So I think.
I
we
mean,
wanna
very
know.
rarely will I be working on 5 properties at once, although my list was pretty lengthy on Monday.
I was like, did you say 25 properties?
It was very lengthy, really. I mean, they're so long and filled with information that reality is, we can only kind of shoot out one at a time.
Okay, well, and if we can interject at this phase, now that because I feel like I understand it much more, so we have better ideas about how we could utilize what you are interested in, and what we can, like an easement sounds like a win-win for almost everybody. So, that might not have occurred had we not had a more thorough conversation with you, so.
But Tim has comment.
Okay.
But,
And he
Okay,
gets
Nicole.
53 minutes and 52
yes,
seconds.
and so, just to give you the heads up on certain things that we're working on, and I completely missed the game, I slept differently, but,
I'd like to apologize in advance.
So
to
what's-
Nicole's child.
So what will happen is we are looking at, as you know, we've been asked to look at the potential, and I'm saying potential like with bright lights, of a rebuild for the police department, okay? Just properties, that are around the center of town. They have to be in the center of town for many reasons. So it was already discussed, the police department, the tower,
And the police
location.
deserve that.
So at the end of the day, with wetland restrictions and all of that, and, you know, other issues, the two properties we've kind of narrowed it down to with the police commissioners were 11 Meeting House and 5 Newton.
So where's
Now-
I just
11
want you to know that she's doing my entire report.
Okay.
That's
we
good.
maybe
No, no,
cut
no, that's
time.
fine. I did also offer to just have this be the.
Well, 11
coupon.
Meeting House is where? That's
So the
this.
problem with 11 Meeting House is it's where the tennis courts are.
Yep.
So
It
we would
goes
have
from
to
about
find
here.
another
Just
location.
right below.
Because that's a huge amenity that is packed 24/7, and I would certainly
The
not
tennis
be in
courts?
favor. Yeah, I would not, me personally, I would not be in favor of the town losing that amenity without it being somewhere else, because that is used all the time. So that's the tennis courts, and 5 Newton, where am I?
Is right
Oh,
next to,
It's the corner across from the old firehouse.
so where the pond is?
Not where the pond is. The pond is the property behind
Before
it.
the
5 Newton is 5.90 acres. Cursory review of it, which we have.
Ben,
Just
would that be the
cursory
back,
review.
the front yard of
There's
your
a
house?
small
Ben's
bit of
front yard.
wetland in the back, which probably
Thank
takes
you.
up about, I'm not gonna estimate that.
Oh, it's
Less
a
than
lot
an
of,
acre.
it's very wet.
Yeah, in the back, for sure. So I don't even know if that's a possibility, but those, because of other wetland issues, right, and other things, those were the two
Like
that.
building a high school on them and all the mold and everything?
Right,
came
so
out
those
of
were
that?
the two that. and
Police
then-
probably deserve a building that has very
Right.
limited health issues.
And listen, it may end up being that it turns out that neither work and we have to look at redoing the center building, right? But that's what we were asked to do. So I was putting that out there for you guys to know. Not giving up on Peace Park, and
Is Peace Park a good place for tennis?
no, we can't put tennis there because we were thinking about it. And then I found out that, because nobody had a list of farm leases, and thank God, Christina was
Was
there
sitting in the
at my
room.
meeting. Not that anything would have happened. Like, it's not like we're building a tennis court the next day. I would have found out. But thank God she was there. And then I called the next day and I said, "Can somebody give me a list of properties?" So we were thinking of putting it in
Right
that
where
field,
those
right next to,
Farm on Center.
yeah, right there. So the tennis courts, but we
Isn't
can't.
there more room right near the
The problem with
playground?
there, it's wetlands, and there's enough space there to put in the bicycle playground, right, in that back corner, and potentially a slab that could be used for skating and
Breaking your bones.
in that water park in the summer.
Splash pad.
Thank you. Splash pad.
Okay,
Am I done?
yes.
Do you want me to send you the other typos?
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
just kidding. Good job. Thank
I
you.
can't believe I have a typo on that. Give them back to me.
No, because you're not going to
Okay,
recycle
public
these.
comment number 2. Tim,
Since
Tim, I
you've
think you
already
need,
missed,
Yes.
If you stay for 1 minute, you can hear my 1 minute comment.
Oh, okay.
Tim,
I
do you
didn't
want
wanna
to sign in?
Engage in the conversation, excuse me.
Can you,
Oh yeah, sign in, so we know who you are.
As long as my own meetings.
I told you we're challenging the Board of Selectmen to the longest meeting. The AV guys are giving me dirty looks, and Kathy's asleep, so. No, I'm just kidding. No one would blame you, Kathy. It's riveting conversation wears all of us out.
okay,
Good evening.
you're on.
Good
Did
evening.
you get my message?
Just a recitation of a public comment that I sent to the Board of Selectmen on the Laurel Road property, the access there. In it, I stated that, there was that the Laurel Road access, this little .32 piece of property, was the only practical entrance to that property. I think Baldwin Road being an access, but as the chair has pointed out, very busy road, very narrow road, narrow entranceway that the utility uses to enter goes between two houses. Not practical to put a parking area in the future, certainly, but no place for the public to park. The Ansonia Road area is nice and wide, and that's goodness. But the two concerns there, and unlike Nicole, you know, I do hike, and I went and walked in that area. It is extremely wet. It is, from
The
my
Ansonia
my
Road area?
yeah, in my point of view, all wetlands. I think you can even see it on the GIS map, but I don't recall that exactly. I won't have you verify that, but by putting feet on the ground, it is very wet, and I don't think practical for
Which
a
would mean it
parking
would be
area.
hard for them to want to fill it because it's wetlands. to
Well,
make-
it's wetlands.
For a
In
private-
my view,
You
it's
can't,
wetlands.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
got it.
from the way my feet touch the ground and all the water and all the types of moss and the plants you get in wetlands,
Okay.
they were there. The other concern there is, it is in, and I don't, because I was involved in looking at the Racebrook track parking, dealt with the state a little bit, and on a state road, some of their requirements, and talked about a wide apron, that's one, but that's wide enough to have a wide apron. The concern would be sight lines. That entrance to that property, there's a hill coming down from the four-way stop that most of you probably can visualize in your minds. And that, you know, so traffic, when this comes down fairly fast, but, and the road curves a little bit, and the state gets concerned that there are proper sight lines. What the distance needed is, I don't recall from my first experience, because Racebrook was okay, and that was gone, so I didn't have to get into that. But that would have to be examined, and it looks close to me.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
it just would address one more item, maybe to Ben specifically, is, you know, if we do go talk, and as was stated, the owners approached the town multiple times a few years ago, and again more recently apparently, and you have to ask, well, why are the homeowners, why do they want that land? What's driving them to that? And you know, that if you do get to talk to them, that's a question you can ask. I will say that the one homeowner looking at the end of the road to the right has a fence that goes along this small piece of property. And in the fence, they've built a stile. Do you know what a stile is? If you take two pieces of fence, I'm not sure which, and one's going this way and one's going this way, you put them like this so that you can walk sort of this.
Uh-huh.
So they use it for animal control, and cows,
Right.
so they can't get out of the field, but people know how to walk through that. Dogs can walk through that. But and that comes out to the trail. So there's some interest in walking from that neighbor. But you would ask that question, I'd look at that. And I have some opinions, but it's not appropriate for me to share those in public comment, and I won't.
Okay.
On one other topic that was raised, since I'm just doing public comment, is there is, I would make note, and I apologize, I forget how this came up, so hopefully you can link it to a comment that was made in, you know, knowing about properties. And I think, Ben, you were asking about, can we get a list of all where there was intent, but we don't have legal documents.
They didn't follow through on the legal process. or
Yeah.
whatever, Yeah.
Conservation.
And maybe this is only a bit related, not directly related, but I'll bring it up. There are in town a number of, the town has, you know, less than this many, but still significant in my mind, easements that have been granted to the town. So they're not a physical piece of property, they're a land right. An easement is a land right. The town has a land right in, you know, around this many cases. Those are not tracked anyplace.
Those are
There's
no,
they're not tracked. There's no
Oh, really?
official list of them.
Does Nicole wanna come back and make another comment,
A
tell us where it is?
you know, those, as far as I know, and this, the
So,
suggestion has
say-
been made in the past that,
This
you know,
is-
we need to find a place to have them so they're readily
The
available to
easements
answer
that
questions like
provide
that.
access to trails or parcels of land, there's
And other.
a handful of properties that
Yeah,
have.
some of them are not trail related. They're just things that I've stumbled over time. I'm sure Nicole has stumbled over some, and I've shared some with Nicole about just where town has a property right, but it's not one of the official CUPOP categories. So they're not. It's not a piece of land, and it doesn't.
Well, she's
so-
writing her chapters, so we should add that.
So, and Nicole may provide more current information in her next public comment when you invite her back. That, you know, they've taken care of that. So when that happened, that'd be great. So she can probably
Cool.
tell you, if she's nodding yes, then we're done. And we're done anyway with the public comment.
Tim, may I ask a question on that? My ignorance, why would someone give an easement to the town on a piece of property other than for access?
I'm trying to think if there's there's some property along Amity Road where it exists, and it's just like the front edge runs along the road, and I don't know why they did that. Some of them are maybe pure conservation easements, but I can't speak to people's motivations when they do that.
Can I ask a question also, Tim? Thank you for your comments. My question is, when there is a subdivision in town, like we had been talking about the Merritt Avenue one, and we had made a recommendation on, 10% that they have to carve out for subdivision?
If I can interrupt, that's in the inland wetlands subdivision regulations. That's built in. It's not wasn't a suggestion.
No,
It was-
sorry, I'm sorry, we were suggesting where the 10% should be, the carve out, but then they chose whatever, the developer wanted.
Well, if I can answer that back, we
That isn't
became
my-
aware of the subdivision.
Yep,
That particular developer was very happy to grant the open space cutout. They were very willing to work with us, which they did, about getting the particular property. Over time, there was, I think, some discussion within the Conservation Commission about where a better piece of open space would be. And so those discussions happened over time, and in the end, what happened is that the deal was coming close to the end, and they had a willing partner to accept the open space that was not the town, and that's in the subdivision regulations that they can.
land
they-
trust or whoever.
Yeah.
and it went to the land trust in this case, and the land trust was very happy with what
What's
sort of
given
what
to
the
them.
original discussion was,
Yeah.
not the expanded discussion.
Right.
So,
That was the one where Coopop had recommended we don't keep the open space. Did you remember that? Anyway, sorry, just because
I don't.
Nicole was here, I thought that was funny. I'm remembering this like so vividly right now. She's making wonderful faces at me. But, so to actually, my question, Tim, was, do you know for like any of the property that is that 10% set aside for conservation due to the regulation, do you know if any of those carve-outs have been set aside and left in the town, the town's purview or control, and if there's a database of those?
We're getting help from behind you.
I believe if they're been cut out, they will be in the Coop-Hop database. I'll just call it database. I feel
Yeah.
very, very good about that.
Okay.
That piece of it, because it's a real piece of property, and the town owns it. Or, to answer the first part of your question, though, it strikes me that most of the cutouts and where subdivisions have taken place in land have not gone solely to the town. They have either gone to the land trust, or there's another bunch, and I can't tell you relatively how many. I just don't know. The town will get the property, but usually the land trust would get a conservation easement on the property. So it's a combination, and that protects. That's one way people who were donating the land and making sure in perpetuity that it wouldn't be used for anything other than open space, get the conservation easement by a third party. And that has been done in the heyday of a lot of open space in town. What was that, 20 years ago? That was done a lot.
Got it, okay. Thank
That was
you.
very popular.
So I have one last follow-up, because you're not at the 50-minute mark yet, so you've
No,
got more
I've
time.
got plenty of time.
Just
Yeah. I appreciate that remark.
so just going back to 27 Laurel Road,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, pros and cons of different approaches.
Hmm.
Like, are there, like, what are the cons of this idea of, selling the land but then having an easement for trail access? Should the buyers be okay with that?
In my mind, very little. I think that can be a good solution. I don't know what it solves for the landowners.
That good
Other
feeling.
than, it's a win for the town. I mean, it's a little extra pocket change, right, in taxes, fine. Why the landowners want to pay a little
Why
extra,
would-
give
yeah,
away
why would-
every year,
why
give it
would-
Well, the
away.
price might be a little less.
Excuse
They
me?
might be able to negotiate a slightly less price.
Yeah, but why would the landowner want to buy it?
Yeah.
Because,
I know the
oh,
answer.
They're
okay,
not
Nicole,
they're
we're
not going to buy it,
recognizing Nicole.
but you can.
Tim, I'm sorry, I respect they have letters that they wrote to the town,
Oh, okay.
and what their intentions were. So I'm sorry, I just was reviewing them when you were talking, so sorry to cut. So initially their want was to landscape the area, and have access to it and landscape it. But there was also an issue at one point where Jerry Weiner had a conversation and had mentioned concerns that he thought that there was maybe a potential right of way for the RWA on that property, and that kind of may have delayed it. But that actually isn't the case. And they didn't seem to have issue with there being that right of way for the water authority. So
They could
can't
even landscape a trail.
Right, so I'm not speaking for them, but I'm just saying, in terms of what their intentions were, they actually offered to, initially it was going to be discontinued, which would mean it'd be kind of given to them, like we
Right.
just put our hands up,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would pay the taxes on it. They also offered to buy it. And one neighbor said that should the other neighbor, because it's been almost 10 years, not want it anymore, which I think they still do, that they would buy the entire parcel. So that's where we're at. So,
Now,
sorry, continue, Tim. I
is
don't
it at all?
No, thank you for the additional information. I did not know that. And it's
Communication,
always
this
good
is so
to know.
handy.
But to finish the answer to your question, the easement, having an easement in terms of trail access, which is sort of my sometimes narrow point of view, is the same, except it does put a little bit of additional burden on the town to monitor the easement. And,
Someone has to go out every day and look. I'm just kidding.
well, easements and I think if you especially
No, I
talk to
agree,
the
I
land
agree.
trust that, where they have a number of easements that go between houses, up beyond Beecher Road in that next section of our trail system. The easements just, oh, there's some land, here's my leaves. And once the leaves start, then other things start, and you know, there's encroachment. And so that becomes, and now you have to have difficult discussions with the owners. The people that bought it sell it, and we're still waiting for the water company to decide to, you know, give it up. And the next owners come in and they landscape it, and they put, and then when you go to try to use it, you've got more dealings. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you.
Close the public discussion and.
Close the public and opening up your,
How it closed?
Final call.
Well,
okay, then we're gonna go on to old
Thank
business.
you both.
Yes.
Yeah, thanch you, that was helpful.
And now let's talk to Tim Austin.
Should I get the one lights
Yeah.
up here?
Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, no, which-
Nicole, thank you.
no, thanks.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
yeah.
Barbara got to see me twice. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye.
Having.
Tim, in the interest of time, can we be concise here? Just 'cause we have,
I think I do have a fairly concise
perfect.
presentation.
Just got a
Thank
bedtime
you. I'm
reminder.
gonna have someone flip the screen. I won't have to run back and forth.
Okay,
And having
great.
been admonished once by Diana to not to print just on one side, double-sided, I decided not to print at all. So
Okay.
you probably have to swivel your chairs.
Hang out right here, my friend.
Oh, that's wonderful. I was looking. Okay,
What's
I
this?
can do that.
Hold on, I gotta plug it in first. Will this go like this?
Yeah, sure.
Is it portal? It'll work as the clicker.
Oh, yeah, but how do I go up and down?
Hold on. How do I get rid of keyboard assistant? Try now.
Yeah, but
Oh, I thought we had a PowerPoint.
no, I don't have a PowerPoint. I was just,
I'm sorry. Tim.
okay,
You've got a pointer.
I've got a, is it a laser?
Yeah, there's set laser beams to
Which one?
the red one right here.
Oh, up and top.
Yeah,
Okay,
right
just
here.
press it. Oh, great,
Mhm.
thank you.
I'm
That'll
sorry.
be helpful, no. So I thought,
I'm excited. I didn't realize it was a word doc.
you know, things change over time, and I thought I just,
Okay.
you know, well, I guess I should mention that it came really to give you an update, because you have given funding in the past for some of the directional signs in town, just where we were, where we put them, and just wanted to update you that, and some other things that we're doing going forward. But I thought I'd start with just who we are. Ben, you know, hasn't been in a meeting, I haven't been in a meeting with Ben and talked about the work we do. So the Woodbridge Trail Stewards, sort of the self-named group of volunteers. Betsy Yagla actually put it together at the beginning to bring together members of the Land Trust, the Woodbridge Park Association, the town. And we've evolved a little bit. There are some other residents on there. And in this group, we're dedicated to, you can read, I try not to read every word here, but to, access. We talked about Laurel Road and access. We're dedicated to the safety of the open space. And we want to get people access to that space. Massaro, we're going this weekend. That is to connect the trail to a road, so local residents. So get everybody closer to their open space so they can get into it more easily.
Great.
And while we're there, trying to do something to improve the health of those corridors, basically the invasives, and trying to work invasives, or finding out how we can make the invasives grow less quickly. Mika shares our vision on this next one. How do we connect? And there's been a lot of popular comment on this. How do we connect people to places in town? How do we connect them to the town center and to all those other places where we try to make community? There's going to be a community center soon in the center of town. And then I didn't list it there, but one of the connection points is to the Country Club of Woodbridge for whatever we do there. And there's a possibility to do that. We've looked at how you can connect it. So that's what we're involved in. If you can scroll down, now, yeah, there you go, okay. And, you know, we don't live in isolation. Our trails do connect to other towns. We share open space with Orange, and we share open space with Bethany directly. Raysbrook Track and Bethany Farms, those two where the trail systems go between, you know, on the same plot of land, you know, and we know the animals don't stop at town borders, and you know, why should people? So we're looking for places we can connect, and we connect to all those towns. So as far as the directional signs go, if you go to the next page, you can probably just scroll down, and we can you can go further. You can just, I want to see the brown signs there. So the signs we started putting up, and some of the ones you funded, they're 12 by 18, as it says, and they're, you know, you point left, right, straight, and there's some different. Those are off-the-shelf signs. You can do custom signs, but we haven't so far, and the prices there, they're fairly inexpensive. We've put up signs in the listed locations. I don't know that, I've heard comment before, I think from you, Diana, that you saw the one on Ranch Road.
Yeah, Ranch Road and over on the one they added on Rimmon.
On Rimmon, yep, that goes in the Fitzgerald. Do I have that even there? Yeah, Rimmon Road, trail access is Fitzgerald property.
Yeah, actually, I walk by that one every day on Rimmon Road, and I see the sign, and Joy and I saw the white trailblaze on two of the trees, but the skunk cabbages run over, so accessing it, we need.
Yeah, it
and-
needs a
and
little
even on
maintenance.
The one on, right off of
Yeah.
Ranch, we've got burning bush and barberry.
Okay. The brown colors are usual park colors.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Some fruits.
The ones we have pending are listed here. No, don't go to the map yet, if you would. Thank you. When we went to do Sperry Park, we went to the Sperry Park Commission, and during that meeting, they talked a lot about putting up additional signage at Sperry Park. And now, if you haven't driven on the road there, they do have a sign on each side telling people some of the rules of the park. And they're nice signs. They're very similar to the signs that if you go into Fitzgerald here, before you go to the community gardens, those signs say, no, you shouldn't go any further unless you have business back here, or
Yeah.
official use only type of signs. But they're nice signs. And hearing that, and the design of them are similar, and hearing that they were thinking of putting up more signs, and we wanted to put a trail sign up where there's a very unknown trail there to access the property. We got the thought that we should perhaps change our design, and so we worked on a design, and this is, I'll flash this back. Kathy's not there, so I was going to show Kathy, but this design has come out of these colors and the font and so forth, and our town logo at the top. This came out of.
Looks like the sign that you-
It's
that's
very much like the sign.
Well, it's the same, Mike Hoffenbein did these, so we're totally behind this. You don't even have to tell us
Yeah,
anything.
this came out of the wayfinding initiative
Yeah.
a few years ago.
It's great.
So our plan is to start to use these in the more visible places,
Right.
and work away our small inventory of those other signs in more remote locations.
And this
But-
is the signs that we're about to give you a presentation for
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
all the trails, all
So-
the historic signs,
Yeah,
so,
and you talked about margins. You can look at what these margins are, maybe
Yeah.
perhaps as
So
a
that's what that would look like, that's how.
yes, but it's gonna be smaller.
a little
It's
smaller.
gonna be
Smaller.
A little smaller.
Yep.
And our thought is, as we go along, we'll, replace with Fitzgerald, or, whatever property it is, just replace the Sperry Park.
Cardoza Preserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing, good point, that we are thinking of that you might wanna corroborate is protected property since such and such a time. There might be a data point that you want to share. Just because for this historic purpose, the Land Trust thought it was a good idea, and it also might engage people to look at our QR code, but it's a possible, I mean, I like how simple it is, but there might.
Yeah, but this is a directional sign. This is,
Okay.
you know, we
Yes.
do it.
No,
you know,
I
my
agree.
biggest frustration is,
Directional, ours are educational.
yeah,
Okay.
they're,
No more
the
discussion
purpose,
needed.
but the design is similar. It's
Yes,
a very,
I think it's
very
unifying.
nice, you know,
Okay.
pull together the sign,
Cassie's back if you wanna show her.
the town has an image.
This side.
I was doing a show and tell, and I turned
He
around
turned
to
around
show
for
you,
you.
and you weren't there. So, that's a,
So this is really cool. I really like this idea of like connecting different parts of Woodbridge.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like things are not connected. I mean, so one idea. This is sort of like a more expanded vision, but I feel like if there was a sign that had multiple locations and then the distance to those locations, you know, like if you're hiking in a national park
Yeah.
or
That's a
something.
Yeah.
great
Because
idea.
I feel like if you just see a hiking trail
Sleeping
sign,
Giant has that, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you're not really psychologically connected to where that trail goes. But if you can actually see,
What you're
oh,
connected
it's
Yeah.
0.2 miles to Peace Park from where I am. That's super close. I'll just take this
Yeah.
trail and go there. You know, I feel like that really
that's an
Sort of
that's
puts
an
it together
evolution,
in
Ben.
people's mind, yeah.
No, it's a good suggestion.
And that would
I
be
like
a
it.
different sign, that wouldn't be this sign.
yeah. This would be a much larger effort. You know,
Yeah,
because you'd
but-
have to figure out all the
You're
places.
thinking that there'd be a
Well,
separate
I mean,
signage in different places that would have
I'll
that.
give you one vision, one example I can think of where that might be handy. You know, if we do end up connecting the country club of Woodbridge property to town center through a trail,
Mhm.
you'd probably want to give people an idea of how far that is.
1.4 miles, or
Yeah.
1.1
Mhm.
miles.
Yeah,
So
that-
I
yeah,
think
something like that would be really
that's
amazing.
perfect.
I think.
You know, right now, my biggest frustration as a hiker is I go to someplace to hike, and I can't find where the trail starts. so I've been trying to mark.
That's like right there on Racebrook, like you see the sign, but if you're just looking at it, number one, you drive by if you don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
There's nowhere to park on Racebrook.
Right, you
Similar
have the
as I
side
imagine
street.
what like Ansonia and
Yeah.
Baldwin would be like. So, but then once you see where you can go in and get on the trail, it's overgrown. You're just like, where is this?
But so I think also where you're thinking of the Racebrook parking lot, you might put a sign that says 0.4 miles to the orange parking lot, so people have an idea.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
even if they were just little
Yeah.
little
What you
versions
can
of
do
it.
in,
And Mike Hoffenbein might be a good resource to, you know, because he's the designer of that, and the designer, Sheila's husband, Sheila McCreven's husband, did the design for these. And he's working on this. So he did this.
I'm leveraging him through Sheila.
Okay. Sounds good.
I
We're sharing
unknowingly was
resources in
leveraging
this
him.
town.
Okay.
So,
Anything else, Tim?
yes,
Okay.
two other quick things. Pull up the map in Fitzgerald. One of the things we're doing is relocating the red trail. Hope it's obvious what's printed and what I hand drew in there. This is part of better access to town center. And we approached, Mika and I approached the fire marshal and had a discussion because we wanted to be able to take people who are coming from different points, these accesses now, we have the Fitzgerald, and they're walking through, they can walk to town center. And, you know, at first we had the idea, if you look at the line I drew up above Community Gardens, we were gonna do a Y and go to the left side of that red square, I should have said, is the fire station, roughly. Okay, that's where the fire station is. We were gonna go to the left side, and we understood it was under consideration for the police department for one, but we were gonna come out, and it would have brought us, you have to walk through the parking lot of the fire station. The fire marshal was concerned about that. He said when things happen, there are a lot of people pulling into that lot quickly. That might not be, he encouraged us to go around, so we were gonna loop that. We'd already planned that connection that comes from again, that hand-drawn line bends down and rejoins a trail that's already there, it's the red trail. And then we're gonna take people with directional signs, you know, up along the pathway, the cornfield pathways that are there, until a certain point where they would take the left, go through that wall, and go to the crosswalk. And at the end of that red line on Center Road,
People do that all the time already.
people, the challenge I'm told is people don't tend to walk down to the crosswalk. They tend to cross
Wherever.
where.
No, they don't. I don't.
Yeah, I always cross in front of like the old fire station.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Where there's no
And that's-
crosswalk.
Yeah.
That's the natural
Yeah.
thing to do.
Uh-huh.
And there's concern about that.
So, can I just ask some questions?
Yeah, I should have used my pointer. What did
Is
I
this-
forgot, Diane.
Is
Now I'm
this-
gonna blind
You got
you.
it, you got it.
Yeah, did that jump back for some reason? Thank you.
So,
Oh, you know why, that's where the,
Oh.
can you click on the map?
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm.
Okay, and there you go. Now
So-
it should stay there.
Maybe when I press, I'm not gonna press.
Yeah, you
oh,
can do
so
it.
this
It'll-
is
it'll do
Beecher
it.
Road?
Yes.
Oh, I see. So it's this,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and so this cuts,
We're gonna cut through there, the
is
little
this,
woods.
isn't this the fire, isn't this the, place
Or-
for the?
No, if you, here, I'm gonna use the pointer, if it hopefully
Do it, you
works.
got it. There we go.
Okay, so, I mean, this is a generalized map. The person who made this map at Scrog, and it was probably somebody before them, didn't
Well,
know
whatever.
exactly where the firehouse was. The firehouse is probably a little closer up here.
Yeah.
And this building is, this new shed will be in back of
The
it.
So
shed.
people are
The
gonna walk
shed is
right in
there.
front, oh, they're gonna walk in front?
We're gonna walk in, I actually wanted to mention it, so I'm glad you did. They'll walk in front of the bays. They'll have to do that, because there's no,
Okay.
until they can
But you're
get
gonna-
up
this
to the
is right
sidewalk.
where this is right where there was a conservation easement, which is the whole patio area for the firemen.
Yeah, we're not, we're
You're in
going,
front of
we're
that.
way up, we're pretty far up. We're past
So they're
that.
gonna walk parallel to the old firehouse on the new firehouse side without crossing right there. They're gonna cross where that whole blinking firelight is. I mean, the crosslight.
Right, where the state has
Okay.
put the crosswalk
Got
and
it.
the lights,
Okay.
and I was
Is
told,
this really a trail here right through the community gardens?
well, the red trail, you can see, the existing one comes up here, and it's not blazed because over time, that path is wide, and people just, they don't even know it's a trail. And that's why we wanted to make it more of a trail experience and put some of it in the woods. But then it does bend up to where that existing road is. That's me, I'm sure I'm hitting something.
So, is this the road that goes into the community gardens right here?
Yes, yeah,
And then you wanna cut through and cut behind here?
yeah,
So there's all
we've
sorts
already,
of-
we've
Okay,
already done that
okay.
marking
Alright.
of that trail and that, and begun
Okay, now I
begun the
understand.
work.
Okay.
Yep,
So-
All right.
okay, all right,
There already is a red trail that goes
Yes.
back there behind the community.
Yes.
right,
I mean,
right,
and the kids from the high school use it constantly.
right. So we're just,
Comes
we're,
Is
out
that
to
good or
Red
bad?
Road.
we,
Comes out to an Oak Hill, right?
There is one that comes out to Oak Hill, and then the other, like, yeah, I'm
There
just
is-
putting it in here, you can still use it, it just won't, it won't jump around on you now.
oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, so,
That's the existing red trail.
so it comes
all the
out.
way up.
Yeah, it comes out, Oak Hill though, I feel like where it comes out on Oak Hill is pretty hard to find,
Well, that's not a red trail,
the Oak Hill
and I'm
one.
hoping to be blazing that with white blazes
Okay.
sometime soon this
And
summer.
I have a question. Are you trying to get people to walk along the trail and then cut through the community gardens and you'll have signage that whole area?
I'm trying to provide, ways by doing this that they can get
Well-
into the town center.
Got it. And
So-
understand this. Is this the oak tree right here?
Oak Hill?
That big oak tree? No, this
Oh,
is the-
no, there's no tree represented here.
So where is the trail? Oh, this is the trail already coming down the Chestnut.
The trail already is all of
People will
the,
go along here and then cut. I see.
yeah, this would be,
So, Tim, can I just get?
Yeah.
Is this road that goes back already?
Yes.
So I guess I don't understand how you're gonna blaze this, cause there's nothing to blaze on
It's not sweet enough.
to get them to here.
We can use posts.
Well, the less extra stuff around
Yeah,
the community garden
I-
would be better.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if you could just cut the back part of the community garden and then just go here
Well,
too.
yeah, I looked at that, Sharon, and the problem is that behind this area is all a wet mess.
No, not that. It's, there's that big oak tree. I think it's, I'm here. Where do you cut around the corner before you get to the road? Because the road should come all the way out here, that's what's confusing me. Right.
That's maybe because it's a trail map. Does that scroll down anymore?
No.
I'm sorry, yes.
So.
Yeah, a
but
little
where's
bit-
the
little bit
entrance?
more even.
Where's the parking lot? Is this the parking lot here?
Yeah, the
Okay,
P.
so
The P
here's
would be the parking lot.
But the parking lot would be, the parking lot's on this side
Right.
of this. So this is where you're saying the road is. And then you come down this trail to the road. I would think there's the back of the community gardens that is not wetlands. It's a trail that people drive their cars on to get to the road.
But that is this one. That's
Oh.
this road.
Because this is all packed, is this all community gardens here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, then I think that's a good
There's your
thing.
little,
Okay.
I just didn't
your
understand that.
arrow, little arrow pointing from the sign to where they are.
No, that doesn't make sense, that map is flawed.
It's not a Google map.
Well, it's
It-
not
it-
even, it's not even a good map because this is the road goes in front of there's a road that goes in
Yeah,
front
there's a
of
road
the
down
community
there.
garden.
I think
But then
that
it
you
isn't-
just put your hand on it, I think.
Okay, but this is nowhere near where the
Yeah,
parking lot
that's-
is, so. But you're saying the community garden is here?
Yes.
Where all the plots are?
Yeah.
This is the back road that then
Right.
will go through a trail, okay.
Right.
I get it now,
Okay.
thank you.
All right,
Just
so
having a
one,
hard time figuring it out.
one last thing, I'll wrap up. We have, as I said in the beginning, we're volunteers. We have our second Sunday, that's coming up this Sunday. And
Where will you be? Tell everybody.
Massaro.
Oh, sorry.
We started just before you came in. We'll be at Massaro, connecting a trail to one of the local roads. That we have a fairly good distribution list for that. We always use more people to come, but recently we've started an effort to ramp up a weekday group.
Oh,
And we're going out, we haven't settled on an exact day yet. We go usually Wednesday or Thursday. And we had,
The time.
it's for people who have time during the day and people come when they want. And we sent out some announcements to the Sunday group, said if you have time. And we're up to about 12 people who have signed up to get notices every week. And that's been good. And then we're gonna do some level of advertisement. I'll just pass these around. There's actually
I was gonna say we can push them on.
2 copies, so
The
maybe.
social medias in town.
is that Rachel? We should give one to Rachel.
Just do it that way. Barbara is-
Thank you. Okay.
pass it. And one of these is gonna hopefully be posted on the trails. I think you can tell where it says enjoy walking here for somebody that's walking, and ask them to use the QR code to sign up to get the notifications, and then and the QR code will give them a description of what we do, and they can sign up. And the other one is make a community connection, and that's more for posting on a bulletin board in town hall and other places, and trying to stress that it's a way to come out and meet some other people and make a contribution.
Sounds great.
So that's where we are and what we're doing.
Good job.
Yeah, and I mentioned to Tim earlier that we're trying to figure out where we are with our budget, because we have a new budget starting July, and if we have any extra, we could maybe.
Funding that we can give to the
Yes.
trailblazers.
So we should actually do with that by
That's
the
why I
next
came over
meeting.
here and emailed to them quick.
Okay, so, do you want these back? You want these
Yes, I
back?
do.
Okay.
Absolutely, we're gonna be putting them up. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tim. Here, let me give these back to you.
Tim, where are these signs gonna go? These?
I'm hoping to put one in the parking lot that you just mentioned.
How about the library?
and the library has one.
Library has,
Has a display of the Greenway trails and the maps, and there's one over there, Barbara, I don't know if you've walked over it, got relocated from the entrance where it was very obvious to under the window opposite the large print books, maybe.
oh
maybe-
no, I
Okay,
put them
let's
back.
keep
That
You
was
put
moving.
it back? Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, that
Okay,
was for
so
a
I
particular
think we're
purpose.
done.
yeah.
Can I, one last question?
Of course.
So, yeah, just from a trails perspective, I'm just curious about your opinion. So is it sacrilegious to inquire whether, like, maybe some trail that, like this idea of connecting places, two very well-used places we want to connect, like, what would your response be if we suggested like paving one of those and making it into like a bike path or something like that? I mean, is that
Terrible.
a terrible idea, or is that
Well,
is that a good idea?
Permeable.
Other than,
Permeable.
that's exactly where it's gonna go, other than the word paving. Um, you can ride, and there are lots of places that famous bike paths that are not paved. They're some type of really packed
Oh, I see.
surface that has some permeability.
Mhm.
But other than that, from a trails perspective, no, we wanted people to get from here to there, and I know there's a challenge when we go through the woods. It's hard because of, it's not good for bike riding, and we want to make these we want to get people from here to there. Not everything is going to be a bike capable or supportive trail, but if we can find them, I think that's worth doing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Come back again. So we're on to our second item of 11.
Second idea.
So we
And
covered some
I have
others.
another meeting that I was
Okay.
supposed to be at.
Oh, but the quorum is gone if you leave.
I know, that's
Okay,
my
so let's
problem.
speed this up. Okay, so Earth Day recap.
You
We've
did a
done
great
that.
job.
Yes, we already talked a little about Laurel Road. We kind of just handled
We
that.
did.
in-
So the one feedback for Earth Day is we should let's not put a band in the. That was.
The Sustainability Committee has a
Mhm.
survey that went out. I'll share it with everybody, but you can give some feedback as to Earth Day. But yeah, I mean, we put a band where the fire department normally has a band for their annual fundraiser, and then discovered the acoustical challenges of having tables set up right there in front of it.
It made it almost impossible to converse with people, and I feel like we could have had much better conversations, but everyone's sort of like, a tree, okay, see you later. So,
We got a couple of quizzes passed out there, but yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
that was
but you
probably
know
just
what? The
because
other
of the
thing
rain,
was,
so
Recreation Department invited us. They said that they do a concert series in the summer, and they said any town organization is welcome to set up a table during that time and have information or handouts or whatever. So Mr. Adamovich invited us anytime we are interested in doing that. So I thought that's another great idea. There will be a band again, but it'll be outside and on the
and
green.
it's
So
further what you can put your.
yeah, we
table.
can
The
be
band
further
will be in
away.
the band shell, right?
And I think another
Yeah,
thing you said,
in the regular-
Ben, is that having more focused theme, like a quiz, a trees, but also like we want to talk to you about this aspect of
Mhm.
invasives or,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll make a plan for next year to
Mhm.
have it more focused.
Yeah.
Okay, Laurel Road we've covered. Does everyone agree with that?
Check.
Woodbridge Country Club TAC update and status. I think, do you have anything to say about that? I think we just wanted to put that in as a placeholder, but I think we haven't heard anything. I spoke to Chuck.
Sorry, we did hear some things about the TAC update, that the Board of Selectmen, just to encourage everybody to watch their special meeting because they go over some of the information and some of the recommendations, and they were voting about, which proposal and what to go forward with the consultants to have that evaluation done so they could understand financially what they would be looking at if they decided G2 would be housing and G1 would be fill in the blank. This one would be agriculture, this one would be that. So watch that. There was an emphasis from two of the selectmen to say, make sure that the environmental assessment, the environmental like valuation is done as well as to what happens, you know, what is the property value right now from an environmental perspective. So it'll be interesting to hear what the results are of that. You know, and I think we have an opportunity to respond, you know, based on some of those,
Evaluations.
some of that evaluations, but also, we want to make sure that it includes the, you know, Urban Canopy Fund, which could be like, grant, like fundraising basically for the town. It could be a source of revenue, as, Nicole, you know, provided with us, that they were saying, you know, really wasn't limited to how the use necessarily was, if I'm getting that correct, but that they were open to uses that provided a revenue source. So I think the Urban Canopy one is one that does that. I will pause there just to say, if everybody could take a second, you were at that meeting also. There was a lot of emphasis on building senior housing and building assisted living and building workforce housing, so people who worked at the assisted living center could then walk to work, and then some agriculture, and I can't remember the other ones, recreation. There wasn't really a huge emphasis on it for conservation. So I think, you know, we haven't heard back any response from the Board of Selectmen, so perhaps we can follow up with that email that you sent to Allison asking, you know, would the Board of Selectmen like us to come and discuss any of those items that we presented in that response? And I think we're supposed to be presenting at one of their upcoming meetings, right?
I don't.
That we will, okay. All right, that's all I have on.
And you went to the the TPZ meeting a little bit too.
Oh, yeah, that one was super interesting and fun to go to and listen in on, just like how, you know, the process of, you know, what they're evaluating and what they're doing. You know, they're switching the term in the plan of conservation and development from like small town feel or small town character to small town feel. I don't know what kind of emphasis that has. And then also, it turns out we have like an architectural review board, which any proposal that comes over to TP&Z, they have the opportunity to exercise the right to have the architectural review board weigh in on any of the designs, which I think would be one, you know, one in particular that comes to mind recently would be the one that's going up on Fountain Street, where they're talking about getting rid of a gable roof and going with a flat roof. It would seem like the architectural review board
Should we write a letter to TP&Z or the Board of Selectmen suggesting that they get that?
So basically,
Utilize that?
basically there was one commissioner who said maybe we should just eliminate the entire architectural review board, and then the others said, well, you know, they disagreed with that, but maybe, you know, figure out a way to utilize them more. So I think, you know, from just, you know, other commissions that can be utilized and aren't as much, we can relate and say that, you know, maybe that's one that's important.
Do you know who's on the architectural review board?
I do not. You can find it on the town's website. And there were they were reviewing comments from folks. Like there was a couple of comments that I think, let me see if I can find my notes. Just give me, gosh, what day was that, Sharon? We went to like every single meeting.
Tuesday? Monday. Monday the
Monday,
27th
yes.
or 8th,
Okay,
30th, 28th, I think.
come on. The 28th?
That's what I think.
Okay, yeah, so, you know, there were a couple of things, like Mika had in chapter 1.2.4, a change from character of a small town, and remove character and change it to feel. And then there was another comment that Mika had requested to add, like, we need to collaborate with Yale to understand the existing growth needs for housing. You know, and Commissioner Klee said Yale and other regional major employers. There were some other ones, you know, that they had, the commissioners there, I think, had asked, in addition to small housing and like the ADUs, maybe the suggestion is to add additional like 2-unit development. And I think, I didn't hear anything on ours as far as like what kind of space they're developing on or what, but it was a lot more on, you know, like they're talking about mixed-use housing and mixed-use space at the country club, and they were told a month ago to just keep a space in the POCD to add senior housing and commercial use to, you know, the country club space, like pending the process that's going on. The housing plan needs to be updated every 5 years, so they were suggesting that the POCD should reference that they want to, you know, continue to work with or, you know, consider the housing plan or link to it, and understanding like that it's an evolving plan that can be adjusted. One of the other commissioners mentioned that they want to add in there that the POCD consider using a housing trust fund, which is something that I think the Housing Committee has brought to the Board of Selectmen and has asked them to put in the works, and the town is pretty set on developing that fund. So, you know, like they're asking POCD to consider incorporating using the housing trust fund, which I think would be something that covers affordable housing or workforce housing. There's a lot of discussion on definition of terms. I think Commissioner Klee asked if there was like a glossary of terms so folks could understand the terms that were being used in there, and they said that there wasn't, and the commission decided that they didn't want to add one. Or they didn't, you know, they've got enough going on, I suppose. There's a huge push right now, not just to maintain public water, but actually they've requested to expand it, to change it to expand the public water and sewer systems in town, so that and to coordinate with the Greater New Haven Public Pollution Water Authority. There was some comments about the Brookside Farm, and that there was a residential property up there, and they were all connected to like this sewer system, and the sewer system had failed, and so they had canceled it, you know, sort of going up the hill back behind that farm stand. And so TP&Z wants to change it, you know, to expand and support the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority, and maintain and support the efforts in town to, you know, expand public water and sewer. I'm trying to think what else is interesting.
But that also means more access to more development.
Yeah, there was, and they were also talking about ways to remove barriers for development. Like there could be required parking requirements for a development, and they were saying maybe we should just get rid of the requirements for parking. So they deleted that so that it wouldn't be a barrier.
They've deleted it, or they're still thinking of it?
The requirements of parking, maybe it was deleted, so they're striking it so that it wouldn't be a barrier for development. They're still discussing whether or not they want to have any parking in there. This is to encourage the ease of development, especially for mixed use and commercial development. And they were exploring updating the parking requirements, but they realized there's some like missing chart that's, you know, relevant to the zoning, so they've got to figure that out. There was also something about like specific transit locations, and they want to move to like coordinate with transit providers to expand public transportation in town, and that they had another regular meeting which was happening on May 5th in 4 days. Cinco de Mayo. And
I haven't seen an agenda for that meeting yet.
Yeah,
So
they
I
don't have to
guess
put it
they-
out for 24 hours, so you can expect it at 24 hours and 1 minute. And they will schedule something around the week of the 12th, possibly to continue this conversation about just listening to the different goals that they're editing in the plan. And they're looking at next, I think, future land use in the plan.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and that was just the part that I came in for. Yeah, right. Mika also asked, according, you know, to the consultant, Mika had sent them an email requesting that they need to incorporate MRDA, which is an organization basically that helps municipalities increase the housing stock. Yeah, so there was another one that from Mika that also said that they need to put in the POCD that they need to engage more with the city of New Haven to integrate like the bordering business districts for housing. Yeah, so a lot of discussion about planning
So-
on housing for other communities
It's
in
going to be
Woodbridge.
renamed. Town will be renamed, right?
The town, the next village, the Amityville of New Haven. Anyway, so that's.
Yeah.
So there's also one item from their last regular meeting that we might want to talk about. So this was this turf proposal for a turf soccer field
Oh,
at
yeah,
110
down.
Bradley Road.
Were they accepting the application for it last time?
Yeah, so this is part of, I don't know how the process works because they talked to the person who proposed it a little bit, but I don't know if that's the time they question, but then I think they also have like a public hearing.
Yeah, there has to be.
So, yeah, so there's different places where we can weigh in, but, so I love the idea of, like more, sports fields, and the applicant talked about kind of making a sports complex down there, which sounds great, but I think the one thing that we need to think about is like the potential pollutants from a turf field. Specifically like PFAS and microplastics. And I know that, I think there's options to try to limit those in some way. So, I would, and I don't know I don't know if we should make this as public comment or we need to make this as a recommendation to TPZ to talk to them about it. But basically, like, I know when they
We
put.
can email them to be on their agenda for their meeting. That's what it says, right, in the charter.
Yeah, I don't know what's the best way to get that information, but I would hope that they could at least say whatever turf field you put in, make it something that limits PFAS as much as possible and microplastics as much as
Just to
possible.
support that, there's a new New York Times article that says that 10 to 15% of all the heart disease in the world is related to PFAS, to these plastic chemicals. I mean, it's a huge.
Yeah,
They're
it's a
starting to recognize that it's a huge public health. I mean,
yeah.
some, 100 million people die as a result. I mean, it potentiates lots of other chronic diseases.
Yeah.
There's also nothing to do with it, like, afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, the recyclability. So yeah, these are
yep.
things that I think they should at least talk about it, or make some requirements or something, if they accept the application.
Should we write a letter to TP&Z to this effect that we'd like to talk to them about it and help them be more educated?
Yeah, I mean, so that's one option, is we could just write a letter to them. That worked. But then there's also
Write a letter
the.
to ask to present to them. I think being in front of them is a much more effective than just writing a letter. But I think a letter to find out what.
And also, is this in the watershed down there?
Yeah, it's right by the West River.
For the West
It's-
River
yeah.
watershed?
Yeah.
Because there's significant amount of, do they need to notify the West River water shed?
Yeah, I have no
group?
idea. But
No, because there's huge amounts of contamination from stormwater runoff.
yeah.
Especially as the materials continue to break down.
Mhm.
It's terrible.
So we should
and
inform
there's
the
also-
West River, there's
if
an
there's-
organization that maybe, I don't have Jason.
West River
Kathy
Coalition.
Fay, yeah, Kathy Fay should know.
Yeah, West River
No, but
Coalition.
Jason Morrill is the contact from Woodbridge to that.
Oh, he is?
I think
Really?
so.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I'm not 100% positive, but
And I mean, I think the response might be, since they're having a public hearing, they might just say, "Come talk to us at the public hearing." And
well,
Yeah,
except
but-
they need to be educated a little more if they don't know these detriments.
Yeah,
And
public
not that
hearing
we're-
is a 3-minute comment,
Right.
and it does say that we're
Except for-
allowed to
Except for Nicole.
sit, I think I wanna say ex officio, but we're allowed to sit and ask and request to be on,
That is on our state statute.
right, on their agenda.
Okay, so I'm starring some action items that we're gonna go through at the end.
so, in terms of timing, we would want to talk to them. I don't know if it's too late for their next meeting. We should try to get on the next meeting, which is next Monday.
12th,
Well, the 4th,
then-
or the 5th, you were saying? Their next regular
5th,
meeting
you
is the
said.
5th.
5th, and then the 12th.
Diana, would you write?
The 12th is gonna be, they were discussing as a possible second meeting to continue reviewing
With the
the edits for the POCD.
POCD.
So,
And the minutes
Okay.
aren't out for the last meeting, so I don't know when they scheduled the
I
the
thought
hearing
the minutes
for.
have to legally be posted within 24 hours. 48? 24 to 48, yeah,
Yeah, they're not out for April 7th yet, so
okay.
I was.
they missed that window.
So close.
Who's the person who's their secretary?
Is it?
Their secretary, I'm not
Or
sure.
the person who does the notes, like Kathy does for us.
I don't know, is it Chris? I have no idea.
It might be Chris.
I don't know.
Oh, for what, CPZ?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's Chris,
Mhm.
Christine, I
Okay.
believe.
she does minutes, et cetera? Does
Or we
she?
should be able to find out when the public hearing is, though, through some
But I
other
guess-
channel, right?
Ben, would you like to write a letter to TP&Z that we'd like to be on their agenda?
Hmm. Yeah.
That'd be great.
I can-
So,
And Chris, you can communicate with Chris to figure out how the best way
Okay,
to shape
I can
this.
do that.
Can I throw this out there? Is this the same stuff that they did a couple of years ago at the high school?
Yeah,
So did the high school use,
no.
okay.
So they did do some, they tried to do something, so the company that put it in did some tests for 3 types of PFAS, and their test showed that they didn't, it didn't have any.
oh,
So that they at least did some
Miracle.
nominal thing. So, I think there are things you can do if you ask the right questions.
I just know there was a big public uproar.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But yes, I can,
Okay, that'd be
I can
great.
email Chris and just see what the right thing to do is.
Okay, and then can you try to figure out who will be the person to talk to them? Or 2 people or whatever. So, does that cover the,
my question was on this conversation, does anybody want to join a little subcommittee to work on the response, official response for the turf application? So there's there's 5 of us, right, without Rachel. What?
you want to be on
Oh, do I? I just meant like 3 of us should
Yes.
probably just meet once or twice to
Yeah.
work on actually a response. So
Okay.
should we draw straws or?
it? How about if we table that to the end and we figure out
Sure,
what other
sure,
divvying
sure.
up might be good? So where are we? Country Club tax status, we've done that. Board of Selectmen presentation on Racebrook track conservation efforts. Racebrook track? I'm not sure what that is.
That's what, that was the parking lot.
Oh, and now we're
Parking
not
lot
talking
with
about
Tim.
that.
And Tim left.
Yeah,
Wait,
he didn't
wasn't
want to talk about that.
He didn't want to talk about
No.
that. He,
I
wait,
made a mistake. I
sorry,
thought
but
that's-
does he want to come with us to the Board of Selectmen meeting to talk about that?
Well, that's another thing.
Okay.
And when,
Because the other question we had was, now that we've used all of the toxic crushed pavement, what should we use instead for the
Right.
parking lot?
Okay. Yes, so that's gonna be Tim, that we'll decide that at the end.
Cool.
Okay, so we are gonna give you a very brief presentation on the, deep, signage. 11 places. This is hopefully gonna be the height of it. You are the only 2
Wow.
that needs to know about this, cause we are doing this. This is the
I think
sign.
we need to hold it up for everybody to see.
This is the sign. It's gonna go like this.
board will go
The
vertical
board
instead of
was
horizontal.
put on the wrong way. We're gonna make a little less of a border. We're gonna have the 3 organizations. We're gonna have the title of the place. We're gonna have a little explanation. We're gonna have a QR card. We're gonna have a directional signal. Everyone at Land Trust really liked this line.
What line is it?
Please preserve this for the
Oh,
site for the
nice.
future. Is that okay if we just keep that?
Yeah,
You had
I don't
another
remember
idea.
what I changed.
Okay. And I think it's gonna go 2 feet into the ground. I've talked to Warren.
Oh,
Warren
I know what
says-
it is. I suggested that they say, take only footprints. Oh, sorry, take only
Leave
pictures,
only
leave only footprints. Sorry, it's too much.
Okay.
Too much conservation
Yes.
for the land trust.
And we're gonna try our best, and I don't think, I talked to Warren, that there's gonna be rock, and so we're gonna not necessarily be able to put exactly where we want to, because they're willing to do these signs, which is wonderful, but they're gonna have to maybe move them, so we have to leave this arrow having some fudgeability, depending on how we have to have them moved.
Can I make one suggestion
Yeah.
or
That's what you're here for. The only
take it or leave it? You know, the sign that Tim had, the size of it, is actually really good.
No.
No, we don't
Too
want to
big.
go. It's
Too
too big.
big.
Too
How
big.
about a little bit bigger than that sign? Like, is the sign
Well,
gonna be the
actually,
size
this-
of that board?
no, it's not gonna quite be the sign of that board, but it is gonna be a little larger than this, and they did let us do that, make this decision. And it can't be half sizes, I talked to the signage people, it has to be 5 inches by 8 inches, or not, this is 8.5 by 11, so we'll have to change it anyway. So, yes, I think a little less border and a little larger sign would be good. And it's gonna seem bigger, cause there's gonna be more green here, so it's gonna be a little bit more dramatic.
There.
But we want it to be kind of subtle. That was at least that was my intent.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it is supposed to be like an educational.
Yeah, it's not a directional thing, it's not something that you want.
And that we want the QR code big enough that people can easily deal with it.
Sure.
This is really all gonna go like
Just
this,
thinking
so you
about
know.
young readers.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
do we have any other comments? Because this is going into production pretty soon.
I've got a comment.
Okay.
I have a comment. I had it last night and I was told to shut up.
By whom? By me?
You.
Oh, okay, then talk.
I think that the logos are too big.
Oh, right.
You know what would make that better? A bigger sign.
No,
So
I don't
how
think
much
the sign
smaller
should
do you
be bigger,
think?
but I think the logos should be smaller. I think there's too much emphasis on looking at the logos and they're just really like sort of
I
identification.
kind of agree with Barbara. Is it possible to move the logos to the bottom so that, sorry, Sharon.
How much smaller do you want them, Barbara?
I don't know. I mean, they're round. Do you want me to?
Well,
Calculate?
I'm gonna talk to Mike and he's gonna make up, so we're gonna keep this going, so we have to make.
Is
a
there
decision.
something that will be here in these, this
Yes,
Latin?
yes.
What is it?
It's
Let
gonna
me
go
go.
further.
It's a
just
kind
go
of a
on
subtitle.
Okay.
to entice
It could
people to
have
look
the
at
dates, it could have, we haven't got it
We have some
totaled here.
ideas.
We-
One
we-
might be used to make matches, or indigenous sacred icon, or Sperry grandson.
But don't mention
Anyway.
that one, that was a silly
Okay.
one.
So it's just gonna be a little something that gives
A
them
little subdivision, so
Yeah,
subtitle.
subtitle, got it.
Yep.
Okay, so.
I agree, like the what it is and the subtitle are more important than
Then-
the
then-
organization.
So we've already made these smaller than they were on the other similar signs. I mean, in the, the Sperry Road sign, it's a lot bigger. So
But I
how much
just think
smaller
they
do you
take-
guys want it?
Sorry, Sharon, go ahead. I'm sorry, Barbara.
No, I mean,
Half the size?
I almost say half the size, yeah.
Or 3/4? Sorry. Is the land trust gonna have that yellow, or is it
Yes.
just gonna be white and green like the rest
No,
of
the
them?
Land Trust is very happy that they have the yellow.
Okay.
And this can have more burgundy. This one might wanna evolve and put a little more color in it too.
You might put a green circle around the
Yeah.
outside edge or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dark green.
Yeah, I would, if they could come down, maybe,
I don't know whether
3/4?
half size, they have to be half, but they
No, 'cause you
certainly need
can't
to.
read this or this if it was a lot smaller.
the
Well,
question, what,
It's not even, I mean, it's a symbol, so you don't have to really read it
yeah.
in that sense. That's what a logo is, it's a symbol, much more than a. So I would, in a sense, defer to him, or, have him do a half size and a 3/4 size, I don't know. But I think, to me, they should be quite a bit smaller. And the sign, the Providence Hill
Should be bigger.
correspondingly bigger.
Yeah.
So it,
Oh, I don't, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
happy about these things.
It's always good to have options, Sharon.
So who's gonna make the decision, because,
Why don't we look at it both ways and then just say,
so should I send it around?
with the smaller icons?
yeah.
Okay,
The point of it isn't the 3 organizations.
Yeah,
The
it's,
point
uh,
is,
but-
the
that-
point of it is the design, and it's nice to have some circles, so,
no, I mean, the point
That's
of the
true,
sign.
but you look at that sign and immediately the logos stand out.
Yeah,
okay.
more than anything else.
And
I
what
agree.
you want to stand out is the name. The
Might even
logos
look
are
at
just
even like a little
representative of.
picture of what we're supposed to be looking at, in case it's, overgrown or snowy or something.
You can get the pictures. Okay.
How much do we have left in the budget? That's why I was suggesting maybe the sign would go a little bigger.
We have a lot.
Well, that's not, yeah, there's money left
There's
in the
plenty.
budget, but I think Land Trust wanted it smaller originally. Then they liked this size when they saw that, but I don't think bigger would, and it would take a whole other round of working on it. So why do you think it should be bigger? It's gonna be just right there right on the trail. It's not gonna be,
Yeah, no, I mean, and if you're standing 3 feet away from it, I think it's fine enough, but if-
that's where you will be standing, is 3 feet away
I don't know,
from it.
imagine part of it was like this educational campaign, but if you have a class of school children there, they're all not gonna be standing 3 feet from it. Hard to read from afar.
Well, anyone who could do the QR code needs to come close enough to read the QR code.
That's if they're gonna do the QR code, but I don't think that children coming on the trail, learning about it, are gonna bring their cell phones to download the QR code. So maybe the teacher already has an iPad that's already loaded with or whatever, but the students are there. I think what's important is we're calling out what the historic site is. So if this is
But they can't
Providence
even
Hill
really-
and Hatchet Harbor,
They can't even really realize, I mean, if they see that, they've gotta use the QR code to find out what it is. We can't,
so I'm saying like
Explain.
if a teacher's coming out there and they have an iPad or something with them and they scan it, that's fine. But if they have, a classroom of children, you have a group of hikers, they're all out there together, they're trying to read it. I'm just, from afar, an 8.5 by 11 is not,
Can you read it?
what are those little small circles there?
I mean,
Yeah, no, not the
there's not
line.
much more that
Yeah,
you
not the
probably
lines
read.
underneath or anything, you don't.
The classroom teacher was gonna be telling them
Sure,
about those
yeah.
lines. Okay. Anything else?
I mean, is there something on there that says like historic site? There's no context as to what the sign is. It's marking something, but what's the why? The why is that it's a historic site, right?
Well, maybe that can be, well, so how would you suggest doing that? Put it like,
Is the white gonna be part of this?
yes, but less, probably historic site.
Well, but something up top that calls what it is. I would make the logos a wee bit smaller. Not massively, but.
you know, if we're using him, I think that would be a very good question for him.
What?
Where to put in Woodbridge Historic Site. Put it in, see, he's designing it, let him work.
He's
Right,
working,
because you
he's
have
doing
to-
a great
You
job.
have to go to the site, you have to go to the QR code in the website to learn exactly what you're looking at.
Right.
But with a
How
little
about here, it's
context in it,
down
like,
here,
ooh, this is
Woodbridge
a historic
Historic
site, I
Site.
wanna learn what it is.
I mean,
No,
I
it
think,
should be the top thing you see. Like that says like,
well, the
look
top
here.
thing you see is gonna be the title, because that's the size, that's the one, that's what you're supposed to see, because it's bigger than anything else. So,
Ben,
you
you
know,
have any
let him,
I think you guys have a lot of thoughts.
Sorry,
I don't
Ben.
have any additional ones.
I mean, let him make a suggestion. We'd like to see that phrase, shall I say, in there. Where would he suggest we put it?
I do think the logos feel a little cramped. So, some additional spacing, or I'd say, smaller logos or something.
Okay. So I'll send it around. Anything else?
That's
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna take a walk out into the woods
Lots of walks.
to,
Should we go do that now?
we can do it now. We got only 11 sites to go to. No, I'm just saying if anybody wants to walk, when we decide what days we're gonna do it. Anybody wants to come with?
Feel free.
Yes.
Okay, we put birds on the state registry. Do you have any thoughts about that, Barbara or Ben?
Yeah, I can do a super quick update. So some of the birders are really into this, and they've been putting reports onto the NDDB database. And somebody from the Deep side just emailed me and said that she saw the reports that they're putting on, and so, we've made that connection, and
Great.
so they've got at least one species of brown thrasher, which is a listed bird that Chris
The red-headed
Muscalzo.
woodpecker's another one.
Uh-huh.
We gotta get that.
Yeah, so they're so I think there's kind of that effort is like the current monitoring effort, and then something that's on my plate that I haven't been able to look into much is sort of looking at all of their old eBird data and entering those in as well, because Deep wants to see multiple years of observations of these birds, and I think we have that. We just need to put it in there.
Gosh, okay.
Okay, great.
Sounds like an intern job.
We appreciate that you're doing it. Update on commissions, CUPOP, TPC, but done. Greenway Trail hikes from the community every other week.
We'll just email about that.
Are you gonna do it?
Yeah, we gotta figure it out. Wait, I thought we were starting with Massaro Farm in June.
We were starting one in May, if you-
Oh, okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
but we can delay it,
Yep.
okay? Nugent property, I heard from some people at the land trust that they are interested. Do you have any comments on the Nugent property? Okay. I think that they're interested, and I don't know that it's gone further than that, but they've actively decided they're interested.
They, the state?
They, the state.
Yes.
Update on native pollinators for Woodbridge Country Club with the Boy Scouts. We were gonna talk to Paul Harrigan about that.
Yeah, I didn't hear back from him.
Okay. New business, Woodbridge Open Space Plan review.
We didn't have my report.
Oh,
Oh, okay, sure.
No,
We thought maybe a lot of it was covered, but.
it was.
Nicole
covered.
didn't cover it
A lot
all.
of it was covered.
no, there were 25 properties that they're looking at now.
Oh yeah, we only talked about 3.
Yeah, I have
No, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Can you email those to us?
9 if you count my 7 Clark Road, which literally is a little tiny corner of what actually was the old Bishop Estate or Darling Estate, and we can't figure out why it got cut out. I mean, you can hardly stand on it, it's so small.
Oh, weird.
So, anyway, they asked me to look into it, so I will do
So are
that.
we recommending that we give it back to?
Give it back to Bishop, yes. They also are looking, something I thought was interesting.
Would it have been
Oh,
big
they're-
enough for
they're-
like a cell tower? Do we know what?
I don't, let's not.
No, I'm just trying to figure, no, I'm sorry.
That's a possibility.
Sorry. When did that property transfer to the town?
1970-ish,
Pre-cell tower.
pre-cell tower.
Sorry, I love a good.
Okay, so,
Nicole is wanting to research how much in this whole thing with the 21% that the state would like. She said, which I don't know where she got her figures from, that Woodbridge has reached 75% of that
21%.
21%.
So it's like
I don't know where.
16%.
Was that including the RWA land though? I think that was
It
one
might
of the
be, and that
issues
is
with the
huge,
accounting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But she's going to research how, all the surrounding towns and how much they have in protected land, restricted land, recreational land, open space land.
There's a few,
She
yeah.
needs to do that relative to the size and population of our town, too, maybe. I mean, because,
Well, so how the state has it is, land mass. I don't think it has anything to do with
yeah,
population.
probably not.
Right? But you have to be careful when you're doing that because I was doing that during the last
I was thinking
conversation.
more of the recreation part relative to, that we need more fields. Well, if we only have 8,000 people versus 40,000 people, we don't need as many fields. for-
Fair,
for
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is,
depending on what resource you're looking at for, calculating how much green space or open space or preserved space that a town has, different resources have different numbers, and it depends on what they're including in that, whether or not it
Right.
is recreation,
Well,
passive
it's apples to
recreation,
apples.
right,
Mhm.
open space, preserved space, so we have to look at the
It'll
definition of
be
what.
interesting to see
Mhm.
what the result is. She also mentioned, which I thought was interesting for us, she is not going to, or they are not going to put in their recommendations for the country club any more than any of the other things until they have all the information, which is mind-boggling. You know,
Wait,
we
they aren't
think this is,
submitting,
we think this is big,
well, they aren't submitting this until they have all the other chapters,
all their other chapters, yeah.
which might take a while.
Yep.
Okay.
Most of the rest of, they've asked her to do a history, I think they asked her, maybe she just decided that they should do a history of all the attempts to develop. So, again, Woodbridge
Yeah,
Country
that's what
Club.
her next chapter is, I think. of this.
So, anyway, I think she covered the rest of it. But I thought that was interesting about doing the research on the lands around.
So where she's getting her numbers from about that 75%, the state's goal is to protect 673,210 acres, or 21% of Connecticut's land is open space. Protect that as open space. The department has estimated that 515,884 acres, or 76.6% of the total open space goal, has been protected through a purchase of open space by DEEP and its land conservation partners. So that's probably where she's getting that number from.
That's Connecticut-wide.
That's Connecticut-wide.
Yes.
And where did that,
Where did this come from? This
Yeah.
is DEEP's,
deep,
DEEP's open space,
okay,
the green plan.
yeah,
And,
okay.
and just for context, 20% is a pretty low number. I mean,
Oh, it is, yeah.
you know, there's the 30 by 30 initiative, a national initiative to protect 30% of land. And then, you know, there's this sort of half Earth initiative where, or Nature Needs Half, where the goal is to protect 50%.
Wow.
And those are like flagship global national conservation efforts. So, I mean, 20% is pretty low compared to those other ones.
21%.
Well,
They probably did something based on feasibility, and
Maybe,
Yeah, what they already
they said,
have.
yeah, we're never going to get
Plus
higher
one.
than
right.
yeah. So, and the half Earth stuff was E.O. Wilson, you know, really prominent conservation biologist, Harvard professor, kind of came up with that. So there's a lot of science behind even protecting more land than just the 20%.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should have him present to the town.
He unfortunately died a few years ago, but
Oh, maybe he's got a
Yeah.
predecessor.
okay, is there anything
Students
else?
are
I think we're
studying.
on, member, comments. So does anyone else have anything they want to share?
Yeah, there were a couple of folks who showed interest at Earth Day about joining the Conservation Commission, and we encourage them to contact, and other viewers who are interested, to contact the First Selectman's office.
Good point.
Good.
When's our next meeting? What's the first? Is someone looking at a calendar?
June 5th?
Okay.
Wait a minute.
And will we move Woodbridge
Oh,
Open Space
yes.
Plan to then?
Yes, that's a great recommendation.
Pardon?
We'll move the open space plan discussion to then. Thank you.
And we'll have another deep report on the trails.
Right, so
And we'll
upcoming
do
meetings that we
Laurel.
need to attend.
I'll
Can
go
we
back to
first?
the Coop House.
Oh, great. Thank you. An easement letter to the Board of Selectmen, would anyone like to do that? Cause are we agreed that, or do we need to vote on that maybe? Whether we think it's a good idea to suggest that Laurel,
Like if they do end up, if the intention is to sell it, it's gotta be with the caveat of the conservation easement for the trail access.
is that a motion?
I make that motion.
Anyone
I'll
wanna
I
second.
make that motion for, the recommendation that if the Laurel property, is abandoned,
Sold.
discontinued, relinquished to the neighbors there, that it is with the conservation easement for the trail access.
potential future trail access?
No, I don't wanna say potential future trail access.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay. And who would like to write that letter to Coopop and the Board of Selectmen? Who gets that letter? I'm looking to you, Diana.
It looks, you pointing at Sharon? I'm pointing at Sharon too. Oh, you're pointing at me, okay. Okay. Action, motion pass with Diana responsible to submit the letter to the commission.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay, and then the other actionable item is, we were talking about, is talking to Jason Morrill about the turf, sorry, I guess it's both trying to get on the agenda of TP&Z and also contacting Jason about the
The-
fact that there
The
is a
West River
proposed-
Coalition and
Yeah, the
Yeah, the West
There.
River Coalition, that's it.
their involvement or knowledge of what's
So
potentially happening.
I've already emailed Chris, so that's checked off. I guess I
Do you
can.
wanna email
I
Jason?
can email Jason. I don't.
I also emailed Tony about the budget to see what we have left.
You want
and
his-
everything available
his,
for the-
Yeah, if
Email?
somebody has his email address.
I
that-
have it here somewhere.
Okay, great. Is there any other actionable item? Well, it seems like responding to all the TP&Z stuff is significant. Does anyone else remember anything else that we need to, well, we need to look at this. All of us should look at the recommendations of the history of the,
Sorry, for the public hearing notices that are gonna happen in TP&Z,
Oh, nice, you found it.
yeah, I found it, it's hidden.
you wanna forward that to all of us?
Yes, so May 5th, they're gonna have a,
That's what I was thinking too.
sorry, notice
There
hereby
it is.
given to
Okay.
TP&Z.
Okay, perfect.
Public hearings on May 5th, they're gonna begin at 6:30.
Well,
One
and
is
that's
on
the one-
Lunar Drive for the excavation, removal and filling, grading, processing of earth products, Baldwin Development. And then the other Lunar Drive,
Yeah, I'm not sure what those lunar drive things were.
I don't know, they're removing a lot of excavation. Kathy, do you know what the Lunar Drive development is?
I think this is also, May 5th is also when
And then-
Kathy Wick is coming.
No, this guy Stephen Mason has an amendment to the zoning regulations, to repeal it in its
Hmm.
entirety. The,
Yeah, that's
enacted,
That's the 5th.
yeah,
Are they also having the turf hearing on that same
I
day?
don't see the turf hearing on that.
Hmm.
What you have to do, since they're not listed in the correct place under the commission, you have to go to the town calendar and scroll down through the commission meetings, like ours is today. TP&Z is May 5th. TP&Z has another hearing. Is the same one? No, wait, this is another hearing. Download another agenda. Here we go. Yep, that's the one I just read. Then you have to go back. Okay, so that's TP&Z here. They're listed twice here, but it's not posted on the other one.
So is there another meeting besides that, like on the 12th that you mentioned?
EMS, Human Services, Woodbridge Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee. If anybody has feedback you want to put on May 7th is the Housing Committee. May 8th is the Beach Road School Infrastructure Building Committee. Economic Development, Library Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Board of Selectmen is on the 14th. They were supposed to have something else on the 12th. They obviously don't have anything up yet.
So the 5th may be,
Okay, well, it's a good time to get in and start communicating
yeah,
with people.
I mean, I
before
could
it's-
be, I
think we
thought
should-
they had scheduled a hearing, but maybe I missed.
they did.
I heard, they did, okay, it's just
Yeah.
not posted.
Because we read
Kathy,
it.
could you maybe find that out with
We'll
Chris?
find out from Chris, that's the person I'd ask, and I
Okay.
think she would have mentioned the hearing on turf, I would have heard it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Okay, well, it's good if they haven't, because then we can put in our feedback before there's a hearing, because it might
Yeah.
be good to talk to them before they formulated their opinions totally. We're about to, we can't adjourn without her, we don't have a quorum.
There's no hearing on turf on Monday, I know there's not.
Oh, she's looking up what's on the
You
board.
guys wouldn't be, it wouldn't be this calm. You guys are thinking, well, you're thinking we'd be getting phone calls about this new turf on a soccer field.
Right.
And we'd be in high school to do it.
Yeah, it's not on the public
Okay.
board.
So
It's
are,
always good to double check.
are we ready to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, yeah. I'd like to.
Who did what?
I make a motion?
Who's second? Thank you.
No one yet.
Okay,
I did.
yeah, Barbara did.
I second. Can I get out of here? I'm now 2 hours late for my other meeting.
Thank you,
Have a great
Barbara, for
night.
staying.